Hey guys, welcome back to the Maneuver Radio podcast. My name is Dean. This is my friend Tony, and here we take on the topics of the day from a man's perspective. Today we're going to have a really good episode. We talked about the red pill. So, title of the video: What does the red pill get wrong? All right. Tony and I have a unique perspective on this. So we happen to agree on what we call the description. So red pill we think diagnoses the problem. Pretty much exactly. I don't think we really disagree with them on much in terms of their diagnosis. Where we vary from them and we differ quite a lot. So make sure you watch the end of the episode so you can hear all of our opinions. We differ a lot in what to do about the issues. Okay, we think that there are two approaches you can take. There is the doom and gloom, tear everything down, black pill, right? And we'll explain what that means a little bit. But the black pill, which is like, nothing's worth fixing, just take what you can get from it for yourself and leave it to burn and go your own way. Then there's the maneuver viewpoint, which is, yeah, it's hard. There's no guarantee of success, but it's worth trying and it's worth giving your all. And we sort of take on exactly what that means, how to do that. And the idea that we're trying to do here is really set ourselves apart and help you understand that we have a positive vision that we're trying to sell, and we hope that you buy it. We want you to feel positive about the world like us, that these problems are fixable. So that's the topic of today's episode. We had a really, really good conversation, and we hope you enjoy it. Make sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think, and please enjoy the video.
Alrighty. Let's start off kind of by deciding and letting you guys know and defining like what we think the red pill actually is, because a lot of people disagree on what that even means. And a lot of you may have heard like somebody say, "Oh, this is the red pill. Or is he red pilled? Like, is this red pill?" A couple different misuses of the word, but it's turned into kind of a colloquial thing where people just throw it around, and some of them don't even know what it means. But let's just jump right into it, and I'm gonna kick it over to Dean because he's gonna start kind of describing kind of what the society thinks the red pill is versus kind of what he thinks it is, and we'll do it back and
Yeah.
forth. We'll just kick it right into open dialogue.
All right, so I'll start off by reading the ChatGPT definition. So I use ChatGPT is a useful tool, but you got to understand that this is the way it's trained. I mean, we're not going to get that far into it, but it's going to be sort of the general mainstream, if you will, kind of liberal perspective on it. So I'm going to start with that just so you guys understand. So the term originates from the 1999 movie The Matrix. If you haven't seen that one, it's a very good movie. The main character Neo is offered a choice of two pills in the first act of the movie. One of them is blue and one of them is red. Okay, and Morpheus explains that the blue pill will keep Neo asleep in the Matrix, so he's going to stay blind to the real truth of reality, but he's going to be more happy because he's not going to know how bad things really are. The red pill is the other choice, and it's the one Neo takes, and that's going to awaken him to the reality that he really lives in, which is that the Matrix is fake and they're all being controlled by alien overlords. That's what the term originally means. It's been co-opted, if you will, into a cultural metaphor, and this is how ChatGPT describes it. Okay, at least one of the definitions it gave me. In certain corners of the internet, particularly in men's rights and manosphere communities, red pill refers to embracing specific beliefs about gender dynamics, often criticizing feminism and traditional views on relationships. This usage has been criticized for promoting misogynistic ideas. Okay, now of course ChatGPT has to throw that part in there. Um, I'm I'm comfortable with that definition. I think that's exactly how I would see it. Even the fact that it says it's criticizing feminism and traditional relationship ideas, I think that's really important to the conversation we're going to have today. So that's the breakdown of what the red pill is.
Right.
Now, just so you know, the pill term has also grown to be expanded into other things too. So there are other types of pills you might hear about, like the blue pill, right? Which is kind of comical because even in the movie, the blue pill is like you stay asleep and you ignore the problems of the world.
Right.
But there are people who genuinely call themselves blue pilled. So make of that what you will. Then there's the white pill, which is something like hope and feeling good about things instead of being too angry about it. There are other types of pills that aren't really relevant, but just so you know that if you ever hear stuff like that, it's all a play on this original thing.
Right, and I will interject, Kick says a little bit here, just because I do want to agree with I want to agree with you and say that I'm comfortable with that definition for just today's topic. But there are so many ways we can go with just defining. There could be like an entire 5-6 hour long format discussion of what is
Yeah.
the red pill, but that's a good
Yeah.
summarization of it. And like you said, there's other pills, white pill and stuff. I think that's a response to black pill, which is like kind of like
Get a black
giving up on
pill.
everything,
Yeah.
and then the white pill's like,
Yep.
okay, actually embrace everything. So we will be referencing
Yeah.
white pill and black pill today, like because that's just kind of stuff we talk about, and it's going to help for our versions of what we think reality is like. But in
Right.
essence, I would say that definition is great, but to me, it's more of a one more thing to harp on is that it transcends all of this. It's not today. Like it doesn't. Red pill did not come out when the Matrix came out. Like that's when it got languageified, if you will. That's when it came into language. But it's a term that everybody
Mhm.
kind of. It's a feeling that everybody has always had, even from like Galileo era. Where let's talk about Galileo as an example. He's somebody who was going against the current status quo at the time. It's talking about like heliocentrism, etc. And he was put in jail, because he was questioning, the king or what have you. And that is a term of somebody who maybe you could consider that's somebody who's red pill or who's doing some red pill theory
Yeah.
because he's thinking
Mhm.
outside the box. He's not plugged into the matrix, if you will. Um, and so that's there's examples of this from way even. I mean, if you really want to go into it, I mean, the most famous man ever to exist may have arguably be red pill. So
Yeah.
so we can
Arguably.
talk about that in some
Yeah.
branch, and that'd be interesting because
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody kind of talk about it through that lens. But
Yeah.
we are going to go into what the red pill like specific community does prescribe to like issues today. But let's start by describing those issues, and I think
Yeah.
a lot of them come down to what you were referencing. Traditional relationships, modern feminism, just certain things like that, politics, and social
Yeah.
dating, etc., and then work too. So we'll jump into kind of every little branch of what we think is wrong with the going with modern society, and then we will say what red pill theorists or what red pill community people kind of say what you should do, and then what we say you should do, right? So, and where we
Right.
agree and disagree. So, we'll kick it over to you.
Right.
Just quick kind of for fun question here before we get really serious is: do you have any friends or like immediate family that is somebody who would identify as somebody who's blue pilled? Because you mentioned that you laughed, and I actually felt
Mhm.
sad because I'll tell you why after. But like, yeah, I mean, let's go right into that.
Yeah, I think I do. Now, would they use that term? Maybe not, but yeah, I do know people who are happy with the blue pill,
Yeah.
and they're aware that they're happy with the blue pill, even if they don't call it that. But yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
I
I
mean,
can't say any names,
I've got a
obviously.
couple. I've got a friend who's very close to me who's literally identifies as blue pill. Like literally says to me, "No, no, 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 it's blue pill. That's blue pilled." Because like I'll use it in a
Yeah,
casual conversation. Like kind of I misuse the word sometimes. I say, "Hey, can you red pill me on X, Y, or Z?" Really not supposed to be using it like that, but that's just kind of a colloquial way to. Can you inform me about something
the
that's
truth.
more than
Yeah,
more than entry level information about this thing, right? So I've been saying that
right.
since the Matrix came out. This predates the political shift of 2016, so that's kind of how I have always said that
Yeah,
word. And so I'll ask my,
can confirm.
exactly.
He's telling the truth about that. Yeah,
So yeah, but like I said, I'd ask a person A or whatever, hey, can you red pill me on X, Y, or Z? And then he'll say, no, no, it's blue pill. I'll blue pill you on it. I'm like, I want to know about the thing though. I don't want to not know about it. I asked.
yeah. I don't want to be asleep.
So
Yeah,
it's not even political, and he'll bring it into politics. So and that's an interesting thing we'll talk
right.
about next week. But let's go back into kind of politically speaking. Actually, we'll just jump into it right now. Politically speaking, I
Yeah,
guess
let's do
we'll,
it.
we'll go from there first. What are the problems with the political system today in terms of red pill? Like, and what would they say the descripting, reasoning for like why they calling it, red pill, and etc.
Yeah. Well, so if we remember the metaphor, it's specifically given, the option is given to Neo to choose his fate and choose his destiny based on just these simple little pills. So the option number one is the blue pill, which keeps him asleep, and it's going to help him ignore the true nature of reality. It's going to help him ignore the problems that plague him that he doesn't even really know about. And it's a legitimate option because the world that he lives in is really bad. The Matrix is like this dystopian, there's literally alien overlords harvesting our organs and keeping us in a state of permanent dreaming. It's really, really ugly and terrible. And if he takes the blue pill, he gets to stay asleep in a society that seems normal. I mean, it's not good, it's not fun, but it's normal, and it's peaceful and it's stable, and so that's a legitimate option for him with the blue pill. Now, of course, if he takes the red pill, then he's accepting all these challenges on his shoulders. And of course, that's the whole plot of the movie. Very good movie, by the way. I really like that movie. But anyway, so if we translate that into the political arena of today, right? Uh, the question is whether you're willing and able to face the truth of reality as it is instead of holding to ideals. And the ideals in this case would be the blue pill. It's what keeps you asleep. If you're focused only on what you think reality should be like, then you're not handling the problem in front of you. And if you take the red pill, then you're willing to do the dirty jobs. You're willing to sort of say, maybe society needs to rip the band-aid off in a certain way. Maybe we need to pour the alcohol right into the wound, and it's going to hurt really bad. There's going to be some bad things. Bad things, folks, are going to happen, but we got to do it, because that's part of what the red pill means to me anyway, as somebody who, at least in terms of politically, I'm comfortable using that term red pill a lot to describe myself because of the original metaphor is so rich, it's so strong.
Yeah.
But of course I do shy away from like the a little bit more of the in-depth community red pill kind of stuff and the teachers of the red pill, these types of. I don't really agree with them on a whole lot, to be honest with you.
No,
But
but
I
if you
I,
put
I
yourself
like
in an
the
elevator
metaphor a
and you got to
lot.
choose, right? Let's say you got to choose an elevator of folks to be stranded on an elevator for like an hour. Like, I'm stranded on an
Yeah,
elevator. Would you rather be in a group of people who are like you said, that far deeper kind of red pill? They have a red pill T-shirt, that kind of people, or would you rather be
yeah.
in an elevator with a bunch of people that are like literally self-proclaimed blue pill people?
Oh yeah, it's not even a question. It would be the red pill people, right? Because
Because
they're
there's a
awake
level of
to reality
introspection
in my
there, and they're
opinion.
awake, and you can discuss things. And
Yeah,
maybe you could change their view
yeah.
on the prescriptions, which we'll do to some of the audience later in today's discussion.
Right,
But I think
right.
that's a good way to lay out the framework there. And I apologize for interrupting you, but you were
That's
mentioning,
okay.
yeah. So I think there's a good way to kind of discuss the political framework there. And I think for me, we can go a little bit in specifics and say, okay, what is something in the last 10 years? And let's even predate the 2016 rift. Let's go 2015
Yeah.
to 2005. In your lifetime, what is something that you maybe thought, politically speaking, that you, let's say, were blue pilled on because you didn't know the full details, and then you later kind of woke up to within that time span, the
Yeah,
2005 2015. And so we can kind of give the audience
yeah.
for some kind of references.
That's a great period of time because yeah, back then I was blue pilled. Absolutely. I mean, if you had known me even as recently as like 3 to 4, not you, Tony, because you have known me, but if anybody watching has known me in the last like 3 to 4 years, I've really made a full transformation. I've taken the red pill, right? So I feel like I'm awake now to the true nature of reality, and back then I was definitely not. So specifically in that period of time, let's see, we were playing Burning Crusade a lot of Wrath of the Lich King. Let's see. I would say I was a big believer in Barack Obama. I loved Barack Obama, right? The whole message of hope and change, and we're going to get in there. We're going to be transparent. We're going to get everybody free health care. We're gonna fix the world's problems by being really cool and nice about it, And I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. I loved Barack Obama back then,
Right.
and I was really happy when he won. Actually, it was the first election I ever was able to vote in. Was the 2012 election, and I proudly cast my vote for Barack Obama. And to be honest with you, to my shame, really, I didn't really stop liking Barack Obama until about like 4 years ago. I mean, I didn't love him anymore, but I was sort of still fond of him. I thought he was like, overall a good guy. Today, if I'm honest with you, I despise Barack Obama. I
Yeah.
think Barack Obama was maybe the worst president in the history of the United States, or pretty close to it. And it's specifically because he was so successful at manipulating young minds like myself, right? Like I feel like I didn't have any sort of political guidance, or really guidance really anywhere, but politically especially, I didn't have any real knowledge of the world. I had never worked. I hadn't really been to school. I had never really applied myself or tried to start a business or done anything like that. But yet I thought I understood the way things should be, the way things ought to be. Again, I was
Right.
blue pilled, so I was asleep, and I was being operated just purely by my ideals. And Barack Obama spoke directly to those ideals. And here's a guy who looks respectable, who can speak really well and hold attention. He's very charismatic, and I'm hearing him say things that I want him to say. And I just was there's no way for me to resist that at the time. I just didn't know how to resist it, or why I even would maybe should do
Yeah.
that. So I would say that's one fundamental thing for me. What about you? What about
Yeah,
you?
exactly. Yeah, that's no. I like that the way you framed that out too, because for me, Obak Barama, if you will, he was a kind of a beacon of hope in that era. Like for me, I mean, I was around your age too, so when I saw him campaigning and stuff, I thought, okay, this guy's a bit of a different pace from he's definitely changed from we had Bush, right, and Bush in my mind was somebody. I wasn't Democrat or Republican. I was just anti-Bush because things were not going well at the time in my mind because we were involved in many wars and stuff, and I blame it on Bush because he's the leader. And then Barack Obama was supposed to change everything, and kind of he didn't change anything. He made it, if anything, he made it worse. He made everything worse as far as like just as far as the international conflicts and stuff. He made all that stuff worse, and so I didn't know about that until maybe a few years after his second term. But you don't really like you don't at that time in my life I wasn't really engaged in politics as much, so it was just surface level. But there is one thing that I was definitely like on the wrong side of, if you will, and I don't know if it was blue pill per se, but I do think it was more of a I think it is a sort of a blue pill thought at the time, is thinking that heroin should be legal, like everything including heroin should be legal, and this is some like
Yeah.
extreme libertarianism like view, almost a naive view about human nature. And I thought, in 2008, 2009, I was thinking, hey, even heroin should be legal, and that's something you say kind of get a reaction out of, but it's something that you want to
Yeah.
say because libertarians will say that because they don't actually care about heroin itself, but they want something that's in between heroin and Advil. They want something that's in that spectrum to be like that way. They want to be able to consume that thing, so they say heroin
Yeah.
because like they want to compromise. Okay, fine, I'll take cocaine, or I'll take ecstasy, or I'll take in your home estate. They say I'll take mushrooms, and to me it's like
Yeah.
I never participated in that stuff, but I was like, yeah, you're right. Actually, the logic makes sense. Every human should be able to make their own decisions, and we don't need to make heroin illegal. We just give it to humans. And I even had some dark thoughts, like if they're going to abuse it, let them abuse it. It's kind of like
Yeah.
giving up. That's like literally giving up on humans because you're saying you should be allowed to have poison. You know what I mean? And so I
Right.
updated my model maybe a bit after that, but that was my first instinct, and I'm sure I probably talked to you about this 10 years back. But yeah, during those times, it's like that's something that I thought, oh hey, I'm actually going against the narrative by saying this, but I was just joining another different kind of tribe. So if you ask me today,
Yep.
of course I have a way more thought out position on that. Like obviously, I think heroin should be illegal. Like we should have certain things that are illegal, but and that's not even something that you'd ask a modern day red pill politician. Like what's something that's a big deal? They won't talk about drugs or anything like that. And the reason I bring
Yeah.
that up is because it doesn't have to be Donald Trump is red pill, Joe Biden is blue pill. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be Victoria Nuland is blue pill.
Yeah.
Vladimir Putin is red pill. It's not like that. And it sometimes it does line up where Republicans tend to be more red pill politically, and Democrats tend to be more blue pill politically. Like right now in recent history, that's kind of what's going on. But it's not just like that, and that's what the red pill gets wrong with politics, I would say. And that's a perfect way to segue
Yeah.
into kind of, because we're talking today about what does the red pill get right, descripting wise, but what do they get wrong? And this is kind of one of those things they get wrong.
Yeah.
They say Trump is red pill, everybody who has an R next to their name on the ballot is red pill, and everybody else is blue pill. And I know a lot of people that are really into politics that are just say they say that, oh, he's red pill, he's right wing. And a lot of these politicians that are Republicans, they are pro endless wars, they're pro funding the military industrial complex, they're pro allegiance to big pharma, they're all pro everything in big system and stuff. And that has nothing to do with
Yeah.
that's the opposite of red pill. That is like giving all of your like spirit, if you will, to this bigger authority and this like, kind of nanny state. So I don't think that
Yeah.
it should be
Yeah.
confused with Republican, Democrat, blue, red. That's not what it is, and that's what I think the
Well,
red
a
pill
great
gets.
example of that is what you mentioned at the beginning of what you were saying, is that like you liked Obama because you didn't like George Bush, right?
Right.
And actually, I think in my view, you were correct to not like George Bush. I also think George Bush was a terrible president. Still to this day, I still think he was a terrible president, right? So it's totally like you said. It's really not about individuals. I mentioned Obama as my example, but that doesn't mean that I love Trump and every single thing that he does, right? It doesn't mean that. It just means that I recognize Obama as a chief symptom and a chief, you know, vector of the blue pill ideology, and I single him out for that. But that's just one example. There are examples of left wing politicians that I think in some ways are red pilled in certain examples. So I think the key thing here is like if we're talking about red pill politically, it's in my view, at least in the way that I we're trying to say what's wrong with the red pill, what's right with the red pill. Okay, what's right with the red pill is that it encourages you to look for the truth instead of whatever makes you feel good, right? So that's good. That's very important that you do that in every aspect of your life. Now that where it maybe goes wrong, and this is probably an issue with any kind of political movement or ideology, is that it like you were saying, it tends to assign that to certain individuals rather than remaining true to the principle itself. The principle itself is the red pill. You don't need a politician or anybody else then at that point to tell you what the red pill is after that. You don't need anybody to, even us right now. I mean, you don't need us to, if you're really trying to be red pilled about stuff, you don't need us to tell you anything. Like you could figure this out on your own. I mean, hopefully you're listening and getting entertainment out of this and some education, but like the point is that that's the principle and it doesn't apply to any one individual. I mean, you should always be critical and skeptical of anybody, even if you, maybe especially if you really like them. If you really like everything that they've done, maybe that's even more important that you're critically thinking about this whatever action they're taking next. Like, do I still all in line with that? Do I still think that that's red pilled? Is this some avenue that I actually found some disagreement in? It's important that you stick true to that,
Right.
and not fall into that sort of tribalism.
Do you think that there's some level as far as red pill? Do you think that there's a little kind of all roads lead to Rome, but with red pill, all roads lead to anti-establishment? Because I noticed that like if you think about like what's really uncovering the truth, and you start to see like these politicians, they get along like behind the scenes because they're all after the same thing, and that is donor money. So for me, when I woke up to that, I don't know if it was 2010, 2011 when I started realizing that was going on, or maybe even later, that like everybody is on the same team, a uniparty kind of style.
Yeah.
And there was
Yeah.
like that was kind of what woke me up to that, and I'm kind of wondering if with you, do you think there's some little trend there as far as red pill thoughts leading to people to understand that the liberal hegemony is
Do.
kind of just going out there?
Yeah, I do. And in fact, I would say that instinct to be anti-establishment is actually across the political spectrum, right? So the question is whether you're actually doing that, but everybody thinks they are. So
Yeah.
that's the key thing. Everybody thinks that they're the resistance in Star Wars,
Right.
right? Everybody thinks they're the rebels in Star Wars. Nobody thinks that they're the evil empire, but somebody is the evil empire, right? So because even okay, so even you think of the term woke. Okay, nowadays we know that the term woke has all this baggage with it. It's talking about LGBT. It's talking about feminism. It's talking about all that crap. Back in like 2012, if you said you were woke, that people would
Moon
proudly
landing.
wear that. Like I'm, it was yes, it was almost exactly the same thing as the red pill. In fact, maybe that was the term people used before the red pill. I don't really know, but it kind of meant the same thing. And then the left wing version of the red pill was being woke. I see that actually instead of the problem being, we just don't have the right laws in place, actually it's because capitalism is evil. That's what
Right.
woke meant, right? Like I'm awake to this problem. I've taken this quote unquote red pill, if you will. So I do think what you're saying is true. Like all roads lead to Rome in the sense that like people are just naturally going to want to feel like they're fighting against the power. Like they're the little guy and
Right.
they're trying to they know the truth and they're trying to exercise their will on that. So yeah,
No, and
absolutely.
there's and when you bring that up with woke, it's interesting because I actually even said to myself, I remember having conversations with you and a mutual friend of ours who lives in Florida. We would literally just be like, "Oh, we're woke." We had like
Yep.
4 a.m. conversations. Oh, we're so woke tonight, and like we would just all we would be discussing is like, oh, there's a kind of some Saudi Arabian intelligence leak that they were actually involved in 9/11, and that was hidden from the commission
Yeah.
report, and that was woke to find that out. How is that crossing with today's? You're woke if you have like the blue hair kind of style. That's a completely
Right.
different thing. At that point, maybe that's more red pill, or maybe that's more. Whoa, we're
Yeah.
enlightened by not some phony God's blessing, but my intelligence, like one of those kind of euphorism,
Yeah.
like one of those Richard Stallman type
Yeah.
kind of situations. But I mean, it's interesting because politics aside, for red pills, like the red pill theory, it's a lot of the when we're gonna go. This is why we're doing it top down because a lot of the stuff that's on the bottom side will make you understand like why. Okay, oh, I get it now. Then you look at some of these
Yeah.
like these red pill politicians, and I'm talking about like the Matt Gateses or like the that's the only person I can think of top of my head right now is like that's somebody who or let's say JD Vance. Some of these people that you kind of think, oh, that's a normal looking guy. That's a normal guy who maybe looks like he walks around and just does normal stuff. And then you realize
Yeah.
when we're doing like in about 30 or 40 minutes when we start going down to kind of the dating and social stuff of the red pill, you're like, oh, maybe that's I can see that guy being more socially red pilled. Maybe more he's in the dating world, he's maybe more red pilled, and that's kind of why maybe
Right.
he's on that tribe. Maybe, and that's why you're gonna make sense of it because when your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers identify a red pill as like a bad thing or like a Republican thing or whatever, you might
Yeah.
be confused. You might think, what? I don't. But it's all gonna make sense. Just keep watching, and,
Yeah.
and we'll explain all of it, and you're gonna be you're gonna be educated on the red. This is
I
red
think
pill 102. You'll
yeah.
become 100% educated.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important to mention because in my view, if you're red pilled about one topic, you're very likely to be red pilled about other topics too, right? So that's why we're breaking it down the way we are. We're talking about politics and then we're going to shift into like social and dating and all
Yeah.
that. But you're going to see that, yeah, like you said, they all fit together. So
So one more
yeah,
question for
I
you about politics. What do you think the main, like the most important thing that is like kind of quote unquote red pill? Like what is the big aha moment? Maybe for you or maybe for just a general person that says, oh, and I'll give you a small example for me, but after, but yeah, what do you think like a big like understanding of the political system, how it works when you can, oh, that's how it works. I've taken the red pill. I
yeah,
understand.
I would say it's that Democrats and Republicans are not really two different teams, right? As I think you mentioned that already, that there's something called the uniparty. So the key red pill understanding that you have to internalize is that the American political system gives rise to a perverse incentive that is impossible to overcome, right? Which is that you need to win elections to stay in power, and there are no limits to the amount of power you can have. Now, I'm not talking about the presidency, okay? Because the president is a figurehead, and even in the Constitution, the way the original founders had it planned out, the president was not really supposed to be that powerful, right? He's a figurehead, and he's powerful on the world stage. That's how we project our power is through the presidency and through the military, which the president is the leader of. But internally, the states are supposed to be that's where the power is supposed to be concentrated or not concentrated. It's supposed to be decentralized to the states. And then we have a Congress who is responsible for setting federal budgets and things like that. So that's where the power is supposed to be with the Congress. And it is. That is the most powerful branch of government. And that's by design. That's where it's supposed to be. Now, the problem with Congress is that in our modern day and age, we simply don't need infinite term limits for Congress people. I mean, back in the day, maybe it made sense because it was very difficult in the 1700s to travel from, let's say Florida, or maybe not Florida, but South Carolina up to Washington, D.C. That was a difficult thing to do. You had to take a horse and a carriage, right? And you're moving on. You can't go back and forth every 2 years, so you just stay there and that's your representative and everybody's happy with it. Now, today, we don't need that. The information flow is so quick, travel is fast. Being back and forth to Washington, D.C. is no longer a problem. But because we have infinite term limits for these Congress people, they're basically little tyrants. I mean,
Right.
they're immune to actual pressures from things people care about. The way you get elected is you be famous and rich. If you're famous and rich, you will be elected because that's what it takes. Nothing to do with whether you give a crap about the people in your district. The only Actually, you do have to give a crap about the people in your district, but not the regular normal people, just the people who have enough money to keep getting you elected over and over
Right.
again. Now, this applies across the board. Every congressperson is beholden to this. I mean, Congress is large, there's more than 500 members, so maybe there's one or two or three that are like good, decent people and actually there to try to help. But then they've got 520 colleagues who are
Some are good
not
people,
that.
I
They're not
assume.
that at all.
I like that quote.
Yeah, exactly. Generally, the people we send to Congress, we're not sending our best.
What
That's
is
the key.
what
So
is the
that was.
what was the term he used? That the fine people hoax. Some are like fine people on both
Oh yeah,
sides.
yeah.
Yeah,
Some I assume are good people.
that's
Yeah,
that's a funny. Like, it's got a little bunch of one-liners that are going to go down in history. But
yeah,
no, I
yeah.
think that's a good. That I agree with you for that. Dude, that moment happened for me too. Is you kind of see the list of people that like literally like if you calculate how much money you need for these to get your next term, it's almost like you need every day to raise a certain amount of money. Like how do you write laws if you're
Well,
raising?
especially in the House, in the lower chamber, they get reelected every two
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
So you literally have maybe 1 year of trying to actually govern without needing to worry about reelection. Maybe. But realistically, it's probably more like 6 months. And then you're immediately, after 6 months, you're already trying to get reelected. Right? And
And a
so it's
lot of
not
people,
even about governing
I'm going to
anymore.
take this as a perfect opportunity to say something a little bit controversial. A lot of people question, oh, China this, China that, China boogeyman, China bad, China whatever. And, the thing about China is they don't fuck around with this kind of stuff, excuse my language. They just do stuff. They just get stuff done. They're a dictatorship, of course, they don't, whatever, they have elections, whatever, but they don't have to do this. I mean, there is a lot of corruption there, but they don't have to worry about I'm not saying they're great, but this is one good thing of their situation. Is they'll if they want to build a bunch of railroads, they'll build them. They don't need to wait for it to pass in the House and the Congress and stuff. And that system has its own flaws, but that's an example of what happens when you have to fund your own campaign, and that's all you're doing. Is like you just said, 50% of your time, if not more, is spent raising, donations and raising campaign money so that you can win your next and hold on to your power and hold on to your income of your job. Whereas out there, they have a different system. They just build. In fact, they actually have too many railroads and too many trains now at this point because they've built way too much. Like there's certain downsides of that and stuff, but that's how they get stuff done. And I think people have feeling this. The average person here in my state, I live in California, the average person here has been told, hey, we're going to build this high-speed railroad, from San Diego to San Francisco. It's going to take an hour. It's a bullet train. We've been being told that for 10 years. It's not happening. It's never going to happen. But we've been every year, a couple of years, oh, we're getting that done. We're going to get that done. It's never going to happen because there's so much red tape involved. But the people that are promising us that are gone in 6 years, are gone in 2 years, and it's a rotating like revolving door. They're gone to some lobby company that they were, having some taking donations from. Like now they're working at that company. Interesting how that worked out, but that's how it works. And the question that I asked you, the answer for me would be something similar to what you said. But also, I was so anti-Bush at the time because, he was kind of pushing this war in Iraq, and I thought, Iraq, it doesn't make sense. It wasn't Afghanistan like who was quote unquote involved in 9/11? Why are we going to Iraq? And I was pretty young, so I didn't really know too much, but I questioned it and I looked into it, and I'm thinking, no, I don't really like Bush. He's kind of putting us in too many wars. I'm not a huge fan of that. Let's go with this other guy, Barack Obama. So I put Barack Obama in my head as anti-war, but then 4 or 5 years later, I'm starting reading up, and I'm like, wait a minute. Not only are we still in Iraq, we're now in Libya, Syria, Yemen, Somalia. Like it actually expanded a lot more than just Iraq, and this is kind of quote unquote to spread this like liberal hegemonic like secularism into the Middle East. And when you start to peel back the layers, no one, not even them, no one, not even like the politicians that say this believe that it's about spreading that kind of stuff. It's not about spreading good moral systems to different countries. It's all about money and oil and everything, and that's how things get done. Nobody does things out of good faith, like at that level. No one's just being charitable. I mean, there's certain like churches that do missions, and they probably do believe that, but they're super low level, and you're not going to hear about it. When you say something like, "Oh, we need to do reform of like women's rights in Afghanistan are not good," I'll bet you 90% of my net worth that there's zero politicians that care about that. Maybe 1% of people that actually care about that. And there's a lot of problems that they overlook and then they don't kind of jump into it. So it's all about, in my mind, money. And that's kind of like you said, it's interesting that money is what we both kind of answered, was both of our answers for what woke us up to kind of what's really going on. You know what I mean? So it really is. And I think what I was going to say is the modern day situation, I think that's going to be the red pill moment for a lot of people that are like in the next generation. I think is when you look at Mark Zuckerberg and how he's kind of done his little transformation, he kind of funded the Democratic campaign. He donated a lot of money to them. I don't know the numbers. It's 150 million, I believe. It's a big number. And he's also, trying to form good connections with Donald Trump, Dana White, et cetera, that whole camp. Dana White, I don't know if he's considered a Republican, but he's definitely like pro Donald Trump. He was in a lot of rallies and stuff.
Yeah.
And so now he's on the board at Facebook or Meta. So he's investing in both parties. You know what I mean? Because he wants wants to be able to have those connections and have a loose, a relationship with people in Congress and stuff. So that's somebody who understands the system. It is a financial system. It's not a morality system. And he's kind of a guy, if you look at him, and if you look at him in good faith, you're going to see what I see in him is, and I've always seen this in him, is that he's really a problem solver. He doesn't really care too much about the emotional aspect of things, and he doesn't get bogged down by that. He just plays the game, and he wants to kind of figure out the best solution for things, right? So talk about a little bit of his recent transformation, and tell me if you think what I think as well is that it's a big turning point for some people that are like maybe a generation behind us, and kind of viewing maybe this is an aha moment for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great example. Like, I think Zuckerberg has probably always been red pilled in the true sense of the term, right? Like he sees what's going on and he knows. And the difference between the average guy, let's say you or me, and Mark Zuckerberg is simply that we're not in control of the world's most powerful company, arguably. So like we don't have those incentives to like play the game with both Democrats and Republicans. We have our own tiny little concerns, and we just want what's best for society so that we can be stable and thrive, right? Zuckerberg sees the truth of the world, which is that you pay for play, right? And that's why you're saying now it's funny because he is doing his little transformation, right? He started hitting the gym, and he's going on Joe Rogan, and
Your neck
getting
gets
comfortable with
bigger.
the right wingers.
People start to notice.
Exactly, right? People are starting to notice that, and like he's here's the thing: it looks to somebody who is ignorant, it looks like he's being red pilled right now, right? Like if you're ignorant, you would think, oh, look, Mark Zuckerberg's taking the red pill. He's going to the right team, to the right side. No, he's always been red pilled. He's simply recognizing that the levers of power are now in different hands. He sees the way the wind is blowing. And that's kind of why we're talking about this subject in general right now, because the vibe is shifting. Like the liberal establishment is dead. They're dead and they're floundering on the ground right now, like little fish flopping on the deck. They have nowhere to go because they've been totally dismantled, and it's really getting ugly for them. So people who used to be Democrats, like Mark Zuckerberg, understand that there's no point in remaining loyal to this party anymore. That's a sinking ship. They're going to take the time now that the winds are shifting, to move over to the right camp. But Mark Zuckerberg is still Mark Zuckerberg. He has his interests, and they have not changed. His interest is in making Meta the most powerful media company in the world. That's what he's going to do, and that's all he's doing right now. Now, I'm not saying that like don't trust him ever. Actually, if anything, you can trust him because you know where his loyalties lie. You know
Right.
exactly what he wants, right? Just be honest about it. Don't get excited that you see Mark Zuckerberg going on Joe Rogan and think, "Wow, look at that! The right wing is winning." Yeah, blah. No, stop. Just understand that yes, you have a new powerful ally for the moment, but you have to understand what his true motives and goals are. That's what the red pill is. So that's kind of what we were saying earlier. Don't fall into the tribalism. Don't just get excited that these big faces are on your side now.
Right.
Understand that yes, they may be useful allies for the time being, but it's that where their true loyalties
Right.
lie.
And for Zuckerberg, if you want to call him Zuck, for Zuck, for him, it's I've always kind of seen him as somebody who has been awake, if you will. And I think for me the
Yeah,
big moment was when I saw his, I don't know if you want to even call it like that Congress hearing, and he's standing in front of
yeah,
Congress, and I remember there was like a bunch of Democrats that were just asking him questions in a negative tone, a negative light, and there was like, how could you X, Y, and Z, and how would have been this one, how could you live with yourself under X, Y, Z, and all the Republicans are saying, hey, how does it feel to be a billionaire from zero in the greatest country of all time? And he's just sitting there like,
yeah,
Senator, I don't understand the question. Senator, I'm not
yeah.
sure. Senator, I have to get back to my team on that. How does it feel to be a billionaire in the best country of all time? It feels good, Senator. And
Write that down.
the senator is literally saying, Mark, this is supposed to be an easy question. You're supposed to say, it's easy, sir. I like America. I love for capitalism, baby. Like, so it's interesting. You see,
Yeah,
like, this is a circus show for TV or whatever, but it's interesting you see even that level of it. They're trying to make it left versus right, and he's sitting there like, I don't
yeah,
know anything about any of you guys. I'm just, I'm here making some money and trying to make the
yeah,
app like really good and have 5 billion users, like literally have more than half the planet. So it's interesting, like
yeah,
when this
yeah,
guy is not dialed into this fake system, which ties into episode 3, that he doesn't have these fake problems that these senators and these congressmen have. Like he's really focusing on his own fake problems, and I think
yep.
it's an interesting way. Like when I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, why are they putting? Because it looked like they were obviously acting. If you get like somebody like
Yeah.
Josh Hawley, you watch his videos, he does look seriously like concerned about the things he's talking about, but when he grills somebody, he's more good faith. I feel like when as opposed to somebody who just yells at. I don't want to say Ted Cruz, but somebody like Ted Cruz who like just yells and yells and yells at these people when he has these hearings and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think you can tell
Yeah.
when somebody's being like disingenuous and when somebody's being like good faith. I think that's really the crux for
Right.
me. And I take it pretty seriously. If a politician is good faith, I kind of like that, as opposed to if they're obviously putting on a
Yeah. Same.
facade to just rile people up. I can see right past that. I'm like, next. So
Is there an example of, I know we want to lead this topic, but real quick, is there an example of like a left-leaning politician that you think could qualify as being red-pilled at all? Like,
100%, yeah. I think, for example, I would even use Bernie as an example, but maybe not so much as of late. But I do believe he really believes that like what he was doing is for the good of the people, and I think he's been consistent with that, and he's been good faith with that for maybe 30 or 40 years, maybe longer. Um, I don't know. I mean, there's like if you want to go all the way back to it, JFK. JFK was red pilled. He was
yeah,
one of the original
yeah,
red pilled politicians. I mean, he was questioning everything, questioning CIA, questioning he questioned the Federal Reserve. I mean, that's I don't even want to say that on.
yeah, it's a
I
big
don't,
one.
I'm not going. I'm
Yeah,
not
be careful.
suicidal.
Yeah.
I
In Minecraft.
never commit suicide, but he
Yeah.
questioned the Federal Reserve, so it's like stuff like that. Modern day. I mean, you got some of those folks like some of those people. Some people I would say misattribute these quote unquote woke leftists to be evil or blue pill or whatever. But I think some of these people actually believe in what they're saying, and they are some of them have some red pill thoughts. I'll give you an example. I believe her name is Ilhan Omar. She had some kind of I don't even want to say it out loud, but she questioned a certain conglomerate of people that are owning a certain conglomerate of things, and she got some backlash for it. But that question comes from that red pill thoughts of hey, what's really under the layer here? What's really going on here? Why are we beholden to a certain political action committee? Why are we all stepping in line with a certain pack from a different country? And her allegiance to that question is kind of from a different perspective than what we have, but it's motivated differently. But she still has the same question. So you got to admit that you got to give credit where credit is due. That is a red pill thought. You know what I'm saying? So I actually did like seeing that whole thing play out, and I would give her a shout out for that. You know, so that's what I would say are maybe some red pill stuff. But what about you?
I think that's good. Yeah, I'll just quickly say, I think Bernie's a good example of somebody who just is at least earnest and good faith, right? I disagree with almost everything Bernie says in terms of how he wants to fix problems because I think he's just wrong. But I have 100% confidence that he truly believes what he's saying. I get that. I have no doubt about it because he's been saying the same thing his entire life, and the guy's like 180 years old. So like I believe that he believes what he's saying, and to me that's actually by far the most important trait in a politician. Because I may disagree with you in terms of how to fix problems, but if I at least can say to myself that this person is honest, that this person truly believes what they're saying, and so because what that signals in a deeper level is that they have a true interest in actually solving problems.
Right.
Like he actually sees problems and he wants to fix them. I can deal with someone like that, right? Like we can work together because I also see the problem and I want to fix it. But if the worst thing possible is somebody who just lies and just says whatever they think you want to hear, you can't deal with somebody like that because they're shapeshifters. They're constantly changing whatever their opinion is. You'll never be able to make a deal with someone like that. Right. So Bernie's a good example. I was going to say RFK Jr. The funny thing is, RFK Jr. is a freaking liberal. He ran as a Democrat, or he tried to.
Yeah.
Right. RFK, but of course, because of the twisted political situation we have right now, he's being smeared as like this ultra right wing conspiracy theorist. Bro, the dude is a liberal. He believes in like universal healthcare and crap like that. You know what I'm saying? Like the dude is a liberal. He just happens to be red pilled, and I guess that's the key thing here too. Is what you were saying, even with the Representative Ilhan Omar, is like the red pill is not some. It's not okay. Where the metaphor breaks down is that it's not an actual pill you can take that then shows you the truth of everything. That's just a metaphor. The red pill itself is really just shorthand for the truth, and that anybody can see the truth regardless of where they're standing. I mean, the truth is the truth no matter where you are. So anybody can come to the correct conclusion, and anybody can be wrong.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where that's why it's a fundamental that you're sincere about the ideology of the truth, not necessarily assuming that any one person has all of it, because they don't.
No, I think I think one more I'll give is Joe Rogan, and we obviously this is ad nauseum discussed, but you know Joe Rogan is a liberal. I'm not even going to say was a liberal. He is a liberal, or he is a leftist.
Yeah.
He's pro same-sex marriage. He's pro legalize drugs, etc. He's pro healthcare for everybody. He's pro everyone should be happy and live it free and chill out and do mushrooms. But he's also he voted for Donald Trump. Literally. So, and this is the first Republican he's ever voted for. I believe he voted for libertarians in the past, but he's somebody in my mind who is just left wing, literally. But he's red pilled because he literally questions everything all the time. That's like all he does, and that's part of the red pill theory is like question everything. Don't immediately take what somebody says and say, "Oh yeah, you're 100% right. I don't even want to look into it." Unless you vetted that person or whatever. But it's like even then, be careful. But yeah, I think Joe Rogan is an example, right? I mean, he's one of those guys who. Yeah. Left wing, but maybe exposed to, and we'll talk about this in part 3, but maybe exposed to like a lot of testosterone activities that would just make you kind of say, enough with this BS. You know what I mean? Whereas some guy that's maybe thinking, it's okay, you could just take. I don't want to, I'm supposed to wear the mask at the grocery store. I'm supposed to. I don't want to get in trouble, So I don't. You got Joe Rogan and you got that guy, and that guy's going to be, not red pill or whatever. But I think that's a good example.
Yeah, he's blue pilled, 100%. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we could segue into like the social aspect. I guess chapter 2, if you will, like socially speaking, from a social perspective. I think for you, what do you think socially, like the distinction of like someone who's red pill, blue pill, or no pill? I guess we'll go from there.
Sure. So, when it comes to social dynamics, I suppose there's a number of ways we could approach this. I guess we sort of had our long conversation last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, about vetting people and maintaining friendships. And I think the red pill definitely applies to this, right? Because there's this idea, which I would consider a blue pill belief, that everybody on Earth is just a blank slate, right? That given the circumstances of this person's life, if you traded it with somebody else's life, nothing would really change, right? Like this person would they would swap places, but this new person who's in the new position would have basically the same life as the other person did, right? This blank slate theory, where everybody's capable of anything. You just have to give them access to the right resources and training and whatever else, and they can do it. That is a blue pill belief. It's not true. Okay. So when it comes to social interactions, I'd say that's the main thing is understanding that certain people just have it. They have that dog in them, right? And as somebody who cares about networking or building anything, your job, if you're going to be red pilled in this arena, is to be able to recognize that and also try to be an example of it,
Right.
right? Which is really more important is that you're an example of what a red pill kind of person is. Like, I see a problem and I want to fix it, and maybe the problem is that I don't see any problems to fix. You know, so
Understand.
how am I gonna identify more problems that I can fix and then make money fixing it, or at least try to make the world a better place or something like that, right? Um, that's what the red pill is socially, in my view. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. There's a lot of dynamics that you think, traditionally speaking, are you're told to at a young age. You have to X, Y, and Z because you're supposed to. If you ever hear that phrase, like because you're supposed to, you're probably not. You probably shouldn't do that thing. Or you should question, hey, why? If you peel the layers back, and the person that's telling you you're supposed to do something, and they don't know the answer to it, they don't know the answer to why, probably not something you should be doing, or probably not in your best interests, right? That's probably in somebody else's best interests or some other bigger conglomerate's best interests. And I'll give you an example. At a young age, if you're a young boy, for example, and if you're doing some aggressive wrestling or aggressive like fighting with your roughhousing, if you will call it, like horseplay with your male friends at a young age, you have a lot of parents that say, hey, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be horseplaying. You're not supposed to wrestle each other. Um,
Yeah.
I don't believe that those parents are even thinking from like one layer up. I think in a lot of sense, you should do that stuff because within reason it's healthy to do that as a boy. I mean, you got to roll around and kind of feel what it's like to roll around in the mud. You know what I mean? To get physical. And I think people that benefit from you not doing that are people who in the government, for example, that people who don't want military age men to be physically fit or physically capable of rolling around in some dirt to get things done. And it's kind of a weird top down, it's a bottom up thought actually, but it leads up to the top where the top says, hey, let's kind of just start telling society to tell they don't literally have somebody saying we need to tell kids to stop horseplaying. It's not like that, but it's something where it's this general feeling, and then you have policies implemented, people saying stuff, slogans, etc. That eventually trickles down to people just saying, hey, you should stop wrestling, when in reality, dude, it's something as simple as wrestling. You're gonna have some fun, you're gonna get stronger, it's gonna be good for you. It's not gonna be good for them though, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's something I think is an example of it. And so socially, I would say things that are traditionally viewed as something you should do are no longer viewed like that. And I'll give you one more example. I mean, this kind of is almost in the dating realm, but it's not quite dating. Holding the door open for a woman, like at the grocery store, is
Yeah.
somehow it's being viewed now. I mean, it's somehow being viewed as something you shouldn't do. I don't think we could talk
Right.
about that, like chivalry and stuff like that. But from a social perspective, I think you should do that because you have an instinct, biologically speaking, to do that. Don't fight that instinct. It's going to be help. You're a protector. You're a protector of that person, of that group. Help them out. You know what I mean? Help the weaker, not
Mhm.
weaker physically weaker. Help the weaker people. Open the door for them, even the elders and stuff. So stuff like anybody who ever tells you to go against your instinct, I would say socially speaking, and this ties into what my question for you is in the aspect of like family and friends, like how should you treat your friendships, I guess? And we talked about maintaining and vetting, but your friendships and family members at, for example, a Thanksgiving dinner, you got your family there. Should you be 100% everything on the table, or should you be, hey, I'm going to be reserved. Let's not talk about politics at the dinner table. Let's not talk about religion at the dinner table. I don't want to offend anybody in my family. I want to keep everything status quo. And you can obviously tell I answered that question myself. It's loaded, but let's have you speak on that a little bit
Yeah,
because I know you're
yeah,
excited
that's
to
a
talk about
loaded
that.
question for sure. I'm gonna take the safety off of that loaded question, dude. But okay, so there's this thing that happened recently. JD Vance had an interview, and he's explaining to whoever's interviewing him that the way, as a Christian, the way that you're supposed to organize your empathy, or perhaps uh, put it into a correct hierarchy in terms of what you care about, is supposed to go like this: number one, God above all. Number two, your immediate family. So that's your wife, probably your wife and then your kids, right? But it's not like they're very far apart, but your wife and your kids. Okay. Number three is going to be your extended family. So mother, father, cousins, etc. Then your community. So like your neighbors and your friends, people close by you. And then it's going to be your wider community. So perhaps your local city, government, state. And then finally your country and then the world, right? So if in my view that's the red pill. That is the red pill, is that you need to care about things in exactly that order. If you're let's say you some law was being enforced by the country that was going to cause you to have to betray your cousin, that's out of order. That is out of order. That's not going to happen, right? Like my principles don't go in that order, right? So I have to actually say no to the whatever the law is and try to resist it, right? That would be the red pill version of this. The blue pill is exactly the opposite, in my view. The blue pill says, I care about the world. I care about everybody, right? I care about making the world a better place for every single human being on earth. The reason that's blue pill is because it's pure ideology. It is impossible. It's a stupid thing to even think. I mean, it's ridiculous that you think you could solve the problem of every single person on earth. That's just, or anybody could ever do that, or that's even something we should even be thinking of, because it's just not, it's just ridiculous to even think that. And then you go in reverse order. So if there's a law that your country is enforcing that's going to cause you to have to snitch on your cousin, you're going to do it because you think, oh, this is the greater good. Yeah, this is painful. I mean, even they will admit it sucks. I don't really want to do this, but I have to.
You're
I just
supposed to.
have to do it. Why are you supposed to do it? Why are you supposed to betray your family member in favor of a bunch of strangers? Why? Why are you supposed to do that? You're not. You're not supposed to. That's the truth. That's the red pill of the is
Right.
the correct ordering of the hierarchy in my view.
Right. And socially speaking, I think
Oh yeah. So well, I'll answer your question because yeah, I forgot you asked a question. So specifically in terms of like going, I'm at Thanksgiving dinner. I'm not going to alienate my family members. I'm not
no.
going to do that. Like, I may know that this person is strongly feels one way about gay marriage or abortion, and we
Right.
both is, and we I just know we disagree with that. I'm not going to sit there and pester them about it. I'm not going to do that. Like, I know how they feel, and they know how I feel. Now, if they're the type of person that's open to communicating and debating and stuff like that, I certainly am, and I'm not going to get offended by any viewpoint they have, right? So I'll talk about it with anybody. But if I just know that there's somebody that's going to react very negatively and have an emotional reaction to it, I'm not gonna pester them. My key thing when it comes to family is that we have a peaceful relationship, that we can come together, that we can sort of forget about the things we disagree with, because you don't agree with you don't agree on everything with anybody, especially not your family members who you don't even get to choose. They just pop up in your life and you have to deal with them. So I'm prioritizing a loving and peaceful and stable relationship. And because it's not even just for me either, by the way. I mean, think about your grandmother. It's way more important to your grandmother to have all of her grandkids and her children and everybody there and happy and smiling and opening presents or whatever you're doing. That means so much to her that it's not even a question in my mind that I'm not going to risk ruining that for her. I'm not going to risk ruining the dinner just because I have some opinion I can't shut up about, right?
Right.
So that, to me, that's, I would it's more about like a subtlety. Like you kind of, I think you did it on purpose, but you painted like two extremes, right? Like
Exactly.
am I gonna run at it, or am I gonna hide from it? It's not either one really. It's more like I'm just gonna use my judgment and my discernment and say this conversation not really worth bringing up right now.
No, and
That's
that
all.
is sort of what the red pill gets wrong socially. I think you're right about that, and I did kind of use that example extremely to kind of paint that. Is it is the red pill does say it's extreme or not extreme, and I think kind of using piggybacking off what you were saying earlier with the blue pill and how people view the blue pill ideology as let's save the world because it's totally savable, right? And I think
Yeah.
specifically I can use an example of hey, let's harbor as many refugees as possible because like we can and we need to, and like they're coming from a bad place. And red pill people kind of say no, they should go do their own thing. Like we don't have enough like resources for them, and blue people says we got to bring them in, etc. And what the red pill gets wrong, I think, is that it's a really easy path from the red pill thought of hey, we can't help those guys to the black pill, which is there's no hope for that for that individual for that group of individuals, etc. And I think actually what the blue pill gets right is at least it leads to a path of white pill, which is what we kind of are. I would say what we are kind of more in favor of, which we're in favor
Yeah.
of. Hey, this is the description of the events. Red pill gets it correct. We don't have enough resources to help everybody every we can only harbor a certain amount of individuals, otherwise we're over capped. We have to help people inside of our country, right? That's the red pill kind of understands that. What they say differently than what we do is they kind of super isolationist, like they'll go super isolationist on it. And this you'll see it more in dating, which we'll talk about next, and it'll be more interesting. But in this specific scenario, I think what we do, and we have, I'm speaking for Dean as well, but we have a better segue to the white pill than a black pill segue. And I think a black pill segue would be something like, oh hey, like we can't take anybody in at all from any country at all, and so that would be like let's cut out H1Bs, let's cut out everything because like we can't help anybody at all, and like in fact and then that thought leads to we're no one's ever going to help anyone ever, and like we're actually we're so doomed. Like we're so doomer pilled, if you will. Like and the word
Right.
pill, like you said in the beginning of this episode, it just turns into everything pilled. But whereas we
Yeah.
would say, hey, like let's set up a system to be really efficient to where we can actually help that those gentlemen in Brazil or what have you, or in whatever country, they can stay where they are, and we're going to be doing so good economically from a trade, everything that their country is going to see the benefits from what we're seeing. And a little bit of that
Yeah.
segueing into some current day such stuff is we've got we've got the Ukraine conflict, we've got the Israel Gaza conflict. I've heard a lot of anecdotes from people from not in the United States that are saying, "Hey, Trump being in office is actually something that we're both on both sides of the conflict. Kind of people want that because they can view that as a symbol of hope and a symbol of white pill for peace in those regions. And whether or not Trump is a solver of those problems, the perception of that is what's going on from both sides of some of those conflicts on all over the world. So it's kind of a white pill thought instead of hey everything's doomed, we're all going to end. And I think
Right.
that's where we disagree with the red pill from the prescription of things like what should you do and stuff. So
Yeah.
there's overlap
Yeah.
for there. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great point, and it will illustrate that more in the next topic too, for sure. Because I think a lot of the red pill instinct is to tear things down and to like just break stuff because it's I mean in a way you do have to. I mean like I used the metaphor earlier of ripping the band-aid off. I mean that has to happen. I mean it's unavoidable. And if let's say for the example of like immigrants, like let's say that we said to ourselves, hey, this situation has gotten out of control, we need to just kind of stop for a time, right? That does not mean forever, right? Let's stop for like 2 or 3 years until we can sort this out. We let too many people in that were not properly vetted. We got criminal problems. We got drugs flowing over the border. We need to just get a hold of it, right? We got to stop the bleeding, and then we can go back to the original impulse, which I do agree with. I do agree with the United States being like a beacon of hope. That's where the white pill comes for me. I'm an American, right? And most of you watching are probably Americans. But if you're not, forgive me for saying, I think the United States is the greatest country that has ever existed. Like I think we pretty much got it right. Like the Constitution is an incredible document. This political system we have, the people who live here. I really like being an American. I'm glad that I'm in this country, and the reason I like it so much is because we get to set the example. Like we get to be the example to other countries on how to do things, and it's not that we're going to go there and do it for them. I'm not a puppet. I'm not want to be a puppet master. I don't want anybody in my government doing that. I don't want us to meddle, but I want us to be just so good and so prosperous that other countries can't help that they look and they say, look at the Americans. How are they doing that? How do they always overcome these problems? How do they seem like they're on the brink of death multiple times throughout their history, broken in half in the Civil War, right? World War II, we were attacked by Japan. I mean, the Great Depression. I mean, name any of the problems that we've overcome as a country, and we always come back even stronger. I want other countries to look at us and say, they just keep doing it. What are they doing right? How can we emulate that? and then they can also do that, you know, and then the whole world gets to grow like that. That's my white pill right there, is like, let's make America great so that other countries will have something to live up to. And it's like a mutual competition. It's just like when you see your best friend pushing it and getting after it, and you're like, damn, I want to do that. Like that inspires me, you know, like I want to be doing stuff like that. um that's what it is to me. So and I think, yeah, contrasting it, the red pill often doesn't go that far. The red
Right.
pill often just sort of says everything sucks. We need to break it down, and we need to fix no more immigrants, no women's rights whatsoever. You know, blah blah blah. Let's just get rid of all of it. It's all a problem.
No,
No,
and
no. There's a much more nuanced way to do things.
I think one more thing the red pill gets wrong in this topic specifically, socially speaking, and it's the G word. I think the red pill kind of doesn't. They view atheism and secularism as more of an individual path to maintaining as much maximal positive outcomes from a game theory perspective from your life as possible, and they view that in a way that goes against religion or God or anything like that. Whereas I'll speak as this from this angle, as somebody who is secular. I don't think you need to. I don't think any of that stuff's correct. But the red pill kind of says that's what you should do. I don't think you should be rejecting it, all that stuff just to maintain optimal game theory in your life. And I think there's a way to be game theory optimal in line with being God optimal, if you will. And I think I'm going to ask you this because you have been doing a lot of deep dives on religion, Catholicism, Orthodox Christianity, etc. recently. And so, from your perspective, is the red pill community, why are they so God averse? And I know there's a little bit of a shift now; they're kind of becoming more God centric. But I know you know what I'm talking about. I would say the last five
Yeah,
years, 10 years, even, red pill's kind of been
yeah.
thinking, okay, no God, secular, Sam Harris type, let's go forward and think for myself. So how did they get that wrong,
Yeah.
and what's the change? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so this will be a good segue into the dating too, because I think that these two are very tightly related.
Yeah.
The red pill is closely associated with like the men's rights type of movement, right? Which is just focusing on men's issues, which I have no issue with that. I think that's important to do. But the as you were talking about being game theory optimal versus being God theory optimal, right? Now, from the Christian viewpoint, there's no difference. Like I believe that if you're God theory optimal, that is game theory optimal, right? Because that's like the maximum reward for the least amount of effort. But um, the red pill, because they're so skeptical, they're so counter to like institutions, and it's almost like an anarchic movement where they don't really like hierarchies at all. It's very individualistic, which is a direct response to what they're in opposition to, which is like the collectivist, feminists, left wing socialist type of view, right? So naturally they take the extreme opposite opinion, which is pure individualism, and they see any type of self sacrifice as counter to the their movement, counter to that individualist instinct that they have. So um, now Christianity calls you to do exactly that, and you can see. I mean, I can easily see where their skepticism arises, because they're railing against this collectivist ideology that has basically put them down and made men feel like they're worthless, and that they're the cause of all the world's problems. And they part of that ideology is to say that men need to sacrifice themselves to women or whatever, to society. They need to do the hard thing. They need to check their privilege. They need to, have difficult conversations with their friends about being misogyny and stuff. Don't use any locker room talk, even in your own thoughts, even in your own head. You need to rearrange your thoughts. Oh, you notice an attractive woman, you're a sick freak, for even looking at her, for even noticing that she's there. You're just a pervert, right? So even in their own brains, they're being told to rewire things. So they're anything that tells them that they need to sacrifice whatever their natural instincts are, whatever their natural impulses are, they immediately associate with those left wing sentiments. And that's unfortunately, well, fortunately for me, but unfortunately for them, that's what Christianity calls you to do. But in my view, in the most pure and productive way, because it Christianity does ask you to obliterate your will.
Right.
Your will is evil, is what Christianity says. Your will is of the flesh, is of this world. You need to sacrifice it to God's will.
Right.
Now, God's will does not say be a useless, impotent feminist. It doesn't say anything like that. It says quite the opposite. Be productive, have a family, raise kids, love people around you. That's what it calls you to do. But they're uncomfortable with anything that calls them to uh, cut out any part of themselves. I think that's where that skepticism comes from.
And I do want to say something here because we're about to jump into the most interesting, controversial, substantive conversation that we've had on the channel, and this is going to be probably the biggest. This is going to be the biggest thing you'll have watched since 2020 in 2025. I know we're 8%. We're already 8% through the year, so, but yeah, this is going to be the biggest thing anybody who's watching this will have seen if they've seen it throughout the whole year, not just on our channel, but just in general. But before I go into that, I do want to say like the channel or like the video, subscribe to the channel. You're going to see a lot more where this came from. But um, I want to make a steel man for the red pill atheist. So put a pin in what I just said about the red pill atheist. Remind me to bring that back in after we jump into kind of the meat and potatoes of it, right? So just think about that.
Right, yeah.
Red pill atheist steel man, and I'm going to jump into that after I maybe midway through. But I'm going to start right now by asking you and saying, hey, dating, red pill, women, feminism, degeneracy, coomerism, consumerism, MGTOW, all those buzzwords, like just clip that because like that's what we're gonna get into and that's what everybody's thinking about. So if you've skipped ahead, this is where you've skipped ahead to. Right now is where we're gonna get fresh into it. So kick it over to you. What is red pill and concerned with as far as dating, sexual degeneracy, all that stuff I just listed? The floor is yours, man.
Yeah. Perfect. So, well, I'm assuming you skipped ahead to this part of the video, or you're watching the clip. So I'll quickly reiterate some things I was just saying. Basically, the red pill ideology is an individualistic ideology that applies to men. Now we're talking about dating. Other red pill topics are not exclusive to men, but right now we're talking about men. So when it comes to dating, it's saying to men, this society that we've set up, this dating market that we've set up, is completely designed to cut you down at every. It is opposed to you. You are fighting against it. You're the enemy of this dating market. Everything that the way it's set up in terms of the way you're supposed to act towards women, the way you're supposed to meet women, the way you're supposed to court them and get married and even have kids. Every single part of it is opposed to you and is designed to actually hurt you and neuter you. That's what the red pill diagnosis is. And here's where maybe not surprising. I agree.
Right.
That's true. Yeah, they're 100% right about that.
100%.
Feminism won that cultural war. I don't know when, maybe about 15, 20 years ago, maybe slightly before that. Feminism won that cultural war, and men are now demons in society, and dating is impossible because of it. Because here's what happens. Women get together, and this is true throughout time, but in this particular subject especially, women get together and they talk to each other and they resonate. So what do I mean by resonate? Think about yourself when you talk to your homies, okay? Sometimes you resonate if you're just complaining and they're good and they're just being supportive of you. But I'm gonna say 99% of the time when I'm having a conversation with Tony or any other male friend, me and him are figuring stuff out, right? Like we may agree, we happen to agree on a lot, but we don't. It's not necessarily that we're gonna agree, right? Like he may bring up an opposition to what I'm saying and cut it in half, or I may have a problem that to me is very meaningful and important, and he just kind of cuts right through it, and it's like, well, what if you just did this, And I'm just like, yeah, you're right, yeah, of course. So that's what men do when men interact. We're figuring stuff out. We're chopping stuff up. Women, and I need you to understand this as a man, especially if you're young and you're inexperienced. Women do not do that. That does not happen. When two women meet together, they resonate. And I want you to genuinely think of like a metal rod in the ground with like little sound waves coming out of it at a certain frequency. When it meets a different metal rod, that rod is gonna start vibrating at the same frequency, right? Higher or lower volumes, but it's gonna vibrate at the same frequency. That's what women do. They send out their waves. They're resonating on a certain wavelength of emotion, and then every other woman in the vicinity begins to resonate at the same thing. So it's not a logical question. If a woman comes to another woman with a problem, oh, I met this guy and he seems so great, but he had sex with me and then left afterwards. Okay, as a man, you're like, why did you have sex with him? Why are you doing that? Why are you disrespecting yourself with a man who's not even committed to you? Why are you doing that? A woman is resonating with the emotion. So she's immediately feeling the same thing that that woman is feeling. She's resonating, and her response is going to be, "What a jerk! What a jerk! I can't believe
Right.
he did that to you.
Right.
You've been wrong. You're a victim. You're so innocent and perfect and beautiful, and you don't deserve that." So that's what women do. And when it comes to dating, that's not. So here's the thing. That's not a problem because we need women to resonate certain truths to each other. So it's not necessarily a problem. It's a problem when the society and the institutions are also resonating. Because if we just let that go wild, then there's never like the man's job is to not resonate. The man's job is to be the wall that the emotion breaks on. It's like a wave, and then you're there, and it breaks, and you just say the truth. You just say, I'm not going to resonate with that emotion because that's a stupid emotion. Like you did that to yourself,
Right.
and I'm going to call you on that.
Right.
That's what the man is supposed to do. But our societies are not set up to do that. They're set up to resonate.
No, and
So
yeah.
Red Pill has seen that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and I think that's a perfect example because there are certain cases in time where you try to blend intersexual, I guess, or intersexual dynamics of a man and a woman having a conversation with each other. The woman is, saying to what something to the effect of what you just said. Person A just did something mean to me and bad to me, and I'm upset about that situation. And the man will say maybe, hey, what can you do to fix it? There's this, there's that. What have you done? And the woman might say something to the effect of, hey, don't give me advice. I'm looking to just vent. Totally fine with that. As far as women having female friends doing that, that's what they should do with each other and stuff. That's what they're for. But when you start to kind of try to solve their problems, and they get upset about that, that's that every man that's listening to this has had that experience happen to them before. It's something that happens. You think that they're just being told that, or do you think that's some biological instinct that they have if it's a common pattern? And what's wrong with recognizing patterns, right? So you get to the point where you're saying, hey, I'm 19, I'm 20, I'm 16, I'm 17, whatever, and I've noticed that I have a bunch of male friends, and we're all chilling. But the only female friend only female friends I ever have, somehow they end up getting mad at me for something, and that period of anger lasts for 5 6 months. It could be a grudge, and you're a 16-year-old, 17-year-old boy, and you start thinking, okay, the logical conclusion of this is, I'm just gonna have male friends because I don't want to deal with the 6 month grudges of having to, because I said something wrong, or I wore the wrong shirt, or I didn't want to go to a movie with somebody, or whatever. Usually it's about something, jejune. So when you somehow come to that conclusion and you're deemed as a, sexist, misogynist, etc., you're discouraged from a societal perspective, and sometimes it's harmful because other men are telling you this. And again, we'll talk about kind of the cuttlefish and the dynamics there, but if you're a 16, 17, 18-year-old man and you're having your biological instinct of pattern recognition of what's going on around you, trying to solve for that, and being told, hey, fight your instinct because you need to be politically correct, you need to include everybody, that person, that speakerhead is doing damage to you. They're doing damage to the women around you. They're doing damage to the men around you. So they're actually creating no positive effects on your life or anybody's life around you, and only negative effects. Why are they doing that? That's a very complex question, and we're going to jump right into it. But what should you do about that? Different response. Some red pill says you should do X, Y, or Z. We think we should manipulate the situation a little bit differently. So I know it's a brief thing I just
Yeah.
said, but let's get your feedback on kind of that scenario, and what do you think about that?
Yeah. So what to do? So everything I was talking about, everything Tony just said, we agree with the description. So the red pill is bang on in terms of what they've identified as the problem, which is typical because it's a man's movement, right? So of course they got the problem right. Now the question is how are they going to go about solving it? The red pill solution, and I'll let you contrast
Yeah,
with what the maneuver solution is,
yeah,
if you will. But I'll state what the red pill solution is. The red pill solution is tear it all down, right? Same thing we were talking about with the political thing. Don't participate. Refuse to participate in the game. If you're gonna talk to women and try to like get women, do it in a way that exclusively benefits you only. You need to take your own interests in mind because nobody else is going to do it for you. So you need to learn game, learn how to talk to women, hit the gym, become attractive, get the hottest girl you can get, have sex with her as much as you want to until you're done, and then drop her and move on to the next. And if you can have multiple at the same time, even better. That's the goal. The goal is to treat women as objects because you don't see them as work, and they'll usually apply it to like the modern woman. The modern woman is too damaged, is too feminized, feminist, not feminized, too feminist, too blue pilled, too ideologically stubborn to turn into a wife, and she'll never be a wife. And the number of like marriageable women in this world, in this dating economy is so small that you shouldn't even try. You should just give up on it. Seek your hedonistic pleasure, as get it where you can, and then focus on other stuff in your life,
Right.
right? Like fill the hole, literally fill the hole, and then ignore it after that. That's the red pill solution.
And for context, what he's doing is he's saying that's what they believe. Now, I think
Right.
they're correct about describing the events, as we said. There is a situation where I think we are, and if you look at episode 1, we are in a post marriage society. We can call it that for now. And now people might say, "Oh, we're in a post marriage society." So does that mean we should go further into a post marriage society and abandon marriage as a concept? That's what the red pill people are saying, and that easily turns into black pill right there. You just saw what I just said: abandon it, burn it down, as you said, take it away, remove it, divorce it,
Yep.
divorce yourself from the post marriage society. No, but for me,
Yeah.
it's recover yourself back to where it once was a not post marriage society, a marriage society. And as I'm married, obviously, so and we talked about this in episode 1, but to rehash a little bit of this is that what you were mentioning is a lot of people will have that first breakup, right? Or that first moment where they're saying, "Hey, I don't even know what I did wrong. I fumbled this. What happened?" And they'll show the logs. They'll show, because we live in, it's 2025. They'll show the chat logs, the text messages to their buddies, and then you can kind of see, oh, looks like you were, looks like here you were maybe texting her too much about this, and whatever. Maybe you did something, you came on too strong, whatever, and that's an easily identifiable fix. But sometimes it's not that easy to deduce what happened, and your immediate response is, you know what, all women are just like this one I just had a problem with. They're all as shallow as she is. They're all as evil as she is. They're all as X, Y, and Z. Maybe she cheats on you, and then all of a sudden all women are cheaters. And you get to this quick black pill, red pill segue where the red pill theory says, hey, you need to, as you were saying earlier, maximize your own hedonistic degeneracy, your hedonistic pleasure by setting up as many possible dates with as many possible women as you can, and just ride them out and constantly date multiple women because women are hypergamous in nature. So I'm going to play their game back to them. Now, hypergamy is a biologically evolved adaptation that will never go away. You're never going to be able to fight like Darwinism. It just is what happens. So you can say, hey, hypergamy is bad, and I don't like it, but that's like saying rain is bad and I don't like it. It's never not going to rain. Okay, so.
Right.
And sometimes you have fires, you need rain, right? So there's the point. You need hypergamy. Hypergamy exists so that you can always try to be better as a human, as a man. If you are just women are not hypergamous, you're gonna be below mid. You're gonna be comfortable at your little dead end job. You're gonna be cool with your one plate bench for the rest of your life because you're getting your full ROM. Everything will fall in line to you being settled with comfort and being okay with your little DoorDash of your Disneyland world. But the reality is, hypergamy is a good thing, and this is why we tear way far from red pill theorists, because their first instinct is, I hate hypergamous women. It's so awful to see. They're always dating up. It's annoying. They just date up, and all women are evil. Now, yes, they do always date up, and yes, they are all hypergamous, and etc. But harness that. Figure out how you can maneuver around that reality of fact. White pill that. You say, okay, this woman is only going to date somebody with a 6-figure salary. Now, do I capitulate to her as a specific woman? No, I'm not going to. But what I will do is set myself up to be a person who can get women who are like that. So 6 figures, that's something you can obtain. That's not the height thing. That's not a skin color thing. That's not an immutable characteristic. So get after it for your career. And yeah, a red pill person would say, don't do anything for women. Do it for yourself. There's something to that. But there's nothing wrong with doing something that is good for the wrong motivations inherently, as long as you get to that goal and realize, okay, hey, I'm here. I'm not thinking about only one thing. Now, I'm kind of scattered here, but where I'm going with this is this. I'm going to, if a woman is hypergamous and you are complaining about that, you're in the wrong path. You're in the red pill path. You need to be on the white pill maneuver path and say, hey, I'm going to try my best to figure out my own 1, 2, 3. Remember, fitness, career, women, in that order. It'll all sort of linearly progress into a perfect package. Now, not all women, not all men are like they're going to have the same path, right? So Dean and I have different paths here, but it's something that you need to start focusing on immediately is, hey, how do I make myself a perfect maneuverable object in today's post-marriage society while maybe maintaining a situation where I can get married, can have 2.1 kids, can settle down with a woman who respects me and who I can have a conversation with, who I love, and that's all the positive emotions that I want to have out of the situation. Not let me burn it down and have as much degenerate sex as I can with as many plates as I can spin, etc., in a cringe way, so I can talk about it with my bros and say, "Bro, I just effed this girl and so hard, and I blanked this many blanks, and I blanked the blank out of her, and it was so blank and cool." Now,
Mhm.
the sad part is the reality of the truth is that that's actually not cool. I'm gonna have you explain a little bit why that's not cool, but talk to me about degeneracy and talk to me about why that's their prescription to the problem and why in reality it's actually going to make it worse.
Yeah. So this is yeah, this is where we really I think are the farthest from like the red pill guys, right? Because if the red pill people listening to this would be so angry at what we're saying, right? They would say, "Oh, that's so stupid. I mean, you sound just like the feminists, right? Like you're supposed to as a man, you're responsible for all the world's problems." That's basically what you're saying, right? Like I'm supposed to fix things that I didn't break to begin with, right? And I know that that sucks because they disagree with it so strongly, but that is frankly exactly what I'm saying, right? So I guess the first thing I want to mention here is that in my view, and I think this is the truth, women follow men. Men are the leaders. Men are the leaders of everything in the relationship in the society. That's our role. It's our job is to be leadership and provide leadership in whatever way that needs to be done. Most of the time, being a good leader is about setting an example. Okay, if every man, and I know this is utopian, so it's, but I'm just using it as an example. If every man was like on his full grind and like doing the best he could and was an honest person and didn't sleep around and was like real, had a lot of integrity, what would the women do? They would have no choice but to be the same. They would follow our example. The reverse is not true. If every woman was just a wholesome, godly, lovely woman, that alone would not be incentive for men to do the same thing. Right? It would still be advantageous, at least even from a biological perspective. It would still be advantageous for them, for the men, to maybe sleep around, maybe cheat, maybe not be loyal, lie, etc. There would still be an incentive to do that. That would be wrong in my view, but it would still be incentivized. But if every man is on his prim and proper, if he's all on his game, the best strategy for every woman would be to do the same thing. That women don't benefit from sleeping around, right? In any way, I mean, especially emotionally, but physically, they don't benefit from sleeping around. It's better for them to have a single partner long term, and that's all they ever do, right? So that would be so that's just an example of what I'm saying right now. Men are the leaders, and as a man, if you care, like it's one thing to identify the problem, which is where we agree with the red pill. It's another thing to solve it. You can either solve it in the easy way or the hard way. Okay. The easy solution is to burn it down, to take what you can get from the situation and then leave it for dead. That's the easy solution. It is a solution. It's an easy one, but it's not going to solve any problem in the long term, right? If you're watching this, there's a high chance you want to have kids. There's a high chance you want to get married. You want a family, you want love, you want real fulfillment. What kind of world are you leaving behind for your son or daughter if you've actively contributed to like adding fuel to the fire? What do you do? How is that going to benefit them? It's not. It's going to make it worse. The way that you improve the world is by starting with yourself, and it's not easy to do. You're not guaranteed to succeed, unfortunately. Uh, and you're going to encounter a lot of problems. You're going to see other people sort of cheat their way to what you think you want, right? They're going to like red pill. So I'll transition to that. So red pill. Here's why it's not cool to go like sleeping around with a bunch of girls because it's easy. Anybody can do that. There's no challenge. Like I swear to God, if this is something you really want to do, I strongly discourage you. Don't do it. But you're gonna find out in like 6 months how freaking easy it is, right? To just be like the cool guy, the mysterious dude who seems a little dangerous, and like how easily women are captured by that, right? It's nothing. It's nothing at all. It's not even fun after. It's not fun anymore. Like you do it a few times, yeah, maybe it's fun. Like, oh, look at that! I can't believe that worked. I sent her this text and she actually liked it. I can't believe it. That's funny. Yeah, it's like an amusing thing. But it's just like it's like playing a video game. Like it's like this gets boring. This is old after a while. This is not a challenge. This is not something that actually brings me any kind of fulfillment. It's just one. I'm just knocking them down, right? And like
Right.
they set themselves up so easily because women resonate, right? So I mean, you're gonna nail it every time. I mean, it's not hard to do. That's why it's not cool. It's not something that's. it doesn't bring you fulfillment. It's not a challenge. There's no growth involved in it. It's just here's a thing. You take it out easily, and then you just keep doing it forever. Is that really that's what you want to do? You just want to keep doing the same thing over and over.
Right.
What to me, what's a lot cooler, what's a lot better, is to take the most difficult dragon you can slay. What's the biggest problem in your life that you think you can handle, and go handle it. Right? That's cool. Right? Elon Musk is trying to go to Mars. Like that's a pretty big dragon. Like that's a pretty damn big dragon. Like and here's the funny thing, by the way, Elon Musk is going to get way more women along the way than the
He
dude
has
who
he
makes
has
it his
way more than
entire life to get
2.1
women.
kids. He's already up to 10.8
Exactly.
or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Elon Musk has way more access to women than you ever will. It's especially the guys who make it their entire life to get women. And he doesn't. I don't even know how much he cares about that. I mean, he obviously has a ton of kids, but his main focus is on going to Mars and bringing humanity to the stars, right? Which is a pretty freaking big dragon. I think that's cool, right? What do you think about Elon Musk? That's a cool thing to do. Uh, Basically, I think the best thing you can do for yourself, the coolest thing you can do, is identify the biggest problem in your life, the biggest dragon, enter the den, and do battle with it, and
Right.
come out on top. You know?
Right, and I think that's a really good way to put it. I think the hard path is often the better path than the simple easy path, right? Because it's more
Yeah.
rewarding. It's harder, so less people have access to it just inherently. So when you've taken it, you're more exclusive. So think about a scenario in your life where you have somebody who is faking it to make it, if you will. Like he's in the dating realm. He's saying, okay, let's say he makes a dating profile and he says, I'm 6 feet tall or whatever, 6'1", and he's like maybe he's 5'10", so he's inflating that, and then he's saying I'm making 150K a year, maybe he's making not that much, inflating that, and he just says whatever he needs to say to get somebody get his foot in the door, to get like to start dating women, to start spinning plates as they would say, and then you take that and you compare it to somebody else who doesn't even think about that stuff, goes to the gym firstly, gets after it for himself, figures out a hobby that he likes, and then meets a woman at that low hobby or whatever, and then finds somebody wholesomely. Think about the kind of quality of relationships that person A versus person B are going to have in that hypothetical. And think about that when you're thinking, hey, I want to have 2.1 kids. I want to be married. I want to be having a family. I want to be around friends. I want to have a good, wholesome life. How does having sex with as many women as possible lead to that in a more efficient way than getting after it in the gym, getting after it in your career, getting after it in your hobbies? Like, it's obvious to me, that part B is a better solution to the problem. I would like you to try to steel man, if you can, how part A could ever solve that.
Um, Part A is in the red pill.
The sexual degeneracy as much plates as possible. How
Yeah.
could you ever get to a
Yeah. Yeah.
2.1 of a marriage, a wholesome situation from that compared to what we prescribe as the fitness, the gym, the hobbies?
Okay. I'll try to steel man, and for those of you who don't know, steel man is where it's the opposite of a straw man. So I'll try to use that. I'll try to like argue in favor of the red pill position. Again, obviously I don't believe that, but that's
You
what
can
I'm
just say,
gonna do. So
what do they
I would
think? Yeah.
right. So it would be this. By refusing to participate in the system, you will force it to change from the outside because there will be no more players in that game. So the women will have to leave it and play a different one.
Right.
That would be the
Right, and that's clip. I'm going to clip that for out of context, and that's your opinion. So, no, I'm just kidding. But
yeah.
and this is a perfect segue because there's a term going around, and it's MGTOW, right? So you hear that MGTOW term, and you think, what does that mean? Is it MIGTAO? Like, no. What is it? Is it
No, it's not.
MGOTUW? No, it's MGTOW. Men going their own way, and
Yeah.
this is kind of in the notes here. You're just saying that you're ambivalent to this, right? Or maybe you're ambivalent to this, and I would agree to me as well. So men going their own way is a concept that's floating around the red pill community. That's basically saying, hey, I'm going to withdraw consent from the system, like you just said. I'm going to withdraw consent from the political system. I'm going to withdraw consent from the dating system. I'm just going to literally go my own way. And this is almost like that Sigma male. You kind of see a lot of those Sigma male reels, the Sigma grind set,
Yeah.
and those are really fun to watch. And that's kind of interesting, like that hypothetical Sigma male it's a really cool concept and it's a fun idea, but it's not something that's reality. And it's like what that is that's somebody like American Psycho or somebody like Jason Statham who just or Batman, really just blowing society away and doing literally their own thing and just ignoring every one of their biological desires to have 2.1 kids, have a family, have a wife, have a nice job, have a good life, etc. They don't ignore all that. They just it's Taxi Driver, and it's like it's cool, it's Hollywood because that's what it is. It's Hollywood, it's fake,
Yeah.
but it's a cool concept. But MGTOW is not specifically Sigma male. MGTOW is something that where you're saying, okay, hey, maybe I will MGTOW for a couple of years. Maybe I should do that. And honestly, if I had a client that came to me and said, hey, these are my circumstances, right? I'm 200 pounds. I'm 5'8", 5'9", 200 pounds. So I'm overweight. I don't have a good job. Like I'm trying to make some more money. I've got some credit card debt I got to pay off, and then also like I don't have any women in my life. Like every time I approach a woman, like I don't really get attention from them. So what do I do? And that guy right there, maybe I'll prescribe him MGTOW for maybe a year or two, because I'll say, hey, you know what you need to do is you need to turn off all of your social media immediately. Maybe get a burner phone, maybe like a dumb phone. Jump into go if you don't have a job already, go right now apply for 100 jobs a day or whatever, and maybe start entry level. And also on top of that, at 5 p.m. when you're done applying, go out and just see if you can mow lawns. Like do whatever you can to get after it, and stop talking to your family. Even I know that sounds crazy, but in this guy, it's a rare circumstance. So we're MGTOWing, so don't even talk to your family. Maybe once every 6 months, reach out to them. Hey, I'm update. I'm good. Holiday dinners, maybe. Don't go to your friends' houses. Don't do anything at all other than fix your problems currently. So that's why we make MGTOW. Like maybe go your own way, literally.
Yeah.
And so for that individual, I would say that's something that I would prescribe, and I think it's fine. So there are cases where that in 2 years you look back at that guy, he's gonna be 30 pounds lighter, he's gonna be lean, maybe he's gonna be fit, he's gonna have a good job, he's gonna have like some money accrued, and then he won't even have asked me. I won't even have to ask him, hey, you've got 1 and 2 down. How's number 3? How's the woman aspect of it? I'm not gonna ask that guy that question because I already know
Right.
he'll have a girlfriend, a fiance, he'll have something dialed because he's gone through the hard stuff already. So the easy one will come
Yeah.
come after that, right? So that's kind of what I believe for MGTOW and like 1, 2, 3 in that order. So kicking it over
Yeah.
to you, like, what do you think about men going their own way? And it's kind of like something that maybe you're thinking, maybe that you're doing already. So kind of talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit.
I agree. Yeah. And yeah, like I said, I'm ambivalent because I see why I don't necessarily love the idea of just checking out. Like I don't love I don't love the idea because to me it's akin to like giving up, and I don't think we should give up. I don't think we should quit. Um, but at the same time, I also recognize the difficulty and how overwhelming it can be to take on all the world's problems on your own shoulders, right? Like that is also a very difficult thing to do. I do think there's nuance, and you sort of pointed to that just now. Like I'm not advocating that you blame yourself for all the world's problems or that you really try to fix everything that's wrong, right? I'm not saying to do that because it's not an achievable goal. I am saying that if you care at all about trying to help, then that alone is a very difficult task. But I think it's one worth accepting, right? It's worth trying to be an example of the correct way to live. And if we don't have anybody willing to do that, then this society is doomed. So personally, I'm gonna try. I may succeed, I may not, but I'm gonna give it a shot, right? So and right at the very moment, I am a man going my own way, right? I am living that life, and I'm okay with it. So the other reason I'm ambivalent about it is like I can see that even that is not necessarily counted as giving up, right? Because you can go your own way and still be like a good family member and love your relationships that you have and be productive, and you can still do all that stuff. I mean, not everybody in this world needs to get married and have kids, right?
Right.
So that is one thing. Like most, I think the vast majority of us really want that, but it's not. Maybe you don't. Maybe you really don't care. Maybe you really don't want that in your life, and so you don't have to do it. I mean, I'm not. Nobody has to do anything. So, and for those situations, I can definitely support the the MGTOW movement, if you will. But I worry about encouraging people to just sort of give up and check out. Like, oh, this is just too hard. I don't really want to deal with it, so screw it.
No,
I
and
don't really love that mindset.
No, and I think I'm going to take issue with what you said. You said not everybody has to have 2.1 kids, and I think where I draw the line there is I actually do think everyone except maybe pastors or not pastors, but certain individuals through the what is the term, ecclesiastic perspective should have be aiming for that goal, right?
In the
But
clergy.
right,
Yeah.
so but for as far as like checking out of society, I will prescribe that to some people because I think it does actually give you some short term results, and you might want to check yourself back in a 6 month period of time or in a 1 year period of time, right? Because some people are
Yeah.
hard. I
Yeah.
would call them hard gainers, not from the weight perspective, but hard gainers in the 1, 2, 3 perspective, right? So if they're a hard
Yeah.
gainer, 1, 2, 3, I mean, like let's check out a society for 6 months, and let's come back with people
Yeah.
are going to recognize your traps, your neck, everything. That's 6 months of progress. Like that could be a good little checkout, and I don't think you
Yeah.
need to be always focusing. Okay, I need to have a wife tomorrow, so like, what do? I have to go, whatever. So, but you need to, I think about that long term because I have a friend who he lives in Austin, and he sort of has checked out of not society, but he's got 1 and 2 dialed. Like he's physically fit. He's got a good career, but for number 3, he's checked out of that. He's saying I'm not even gonna try because it's so not worth it for me because the effort I put in is not getting any results. And if there are reasons for that, but a lot of it comes down to the way the system is as far as acquiring and meeting women is not set up for somebody like him. And it's not just someone like him. He's kind of the average person, so it's kind of not set up for the average person. And the
Yeah.
reason I say that is because there's a lot of technology nowadays with like dating apps, etc. And these are just like filters for the hypergamous women. So he is somebody who's sort of given up on that, and I think it's sort of an unhealthy thing to give up on that because I know he might tell you, "Hey, I'm one of those guys that doesn't need a wife, doesn't need kids." I don't believe him, and I don't think he believes himself. And I don't know anybody on this planet that does not need a partner. Now, they maybe say I'm not dependent on one. That's a different thing. But I'm saying getting that level of compassion, companionship, you can't get that from anybody else but a potential wife. And I do believe you're built for that. You're built to have that. So until you've really had that and said, hey, like, I was wrong earlier. Maybe I do actually kind of do need this in life. You can't really say to me, "Hey, I'm going my own way. I don't need anybody in my life," because I think at one point you're gonna need that and want that. Like nobody wants to die alone, right? So let's just be honest about that. But this gentleman here, his life is fine, other than the fact that he's missing number 3 and he's checked out kind of permanently because he's so far gone. And I don't really know what to tell him. But what would you say to somebody who's like that individual who convinces themselves that they have 1 and 2 dialed, but they don't need number 3? And how would you convince him, if at all, that he should get number 3?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't because I do disagree with you on that point. I do. I think that it's rare. I think the vast majority of people want exactly what you just described, and they want a family, and they want a wife, and they want kids. That's the vast majority of us. So I mean, we should definitely tailor our advice to the vast majority of people. And in that case, I agree with everything you just said. But I do believe that there are certain people in this world that just aren't really called to marriage and family life. Like that, I think that that is possible. Now, whether your friend in particular is like being truthful about that, I don't know. Like maybe I think it's very possible, given the climate of dating and everything, that a lot of people may settle for that, but that's not really what they want, but they may just sort of give up on it. And maybe that's what's going on. And if that's the case, I would not encourage that. I think the clearest sign that you're being called towards it is that you really want it. And don't give up on that. If that's what you really want, then that's what you want. Like don't convince yourself otherwise, because then you're going to really be miserable, because you can't fight your will, you can't fight those urges. I mean, that's what's in you. So I'd say number one, just be honest with yourself. If you really see the future, and even your current life, and you think, what, this is peaceful, I'm okay with it. I mean, I don't really care whether I have kids or not. A wife, whatever she may add, she may not. I really think it's worth the effort, and I'm honestly okay being by myself. Then I say more power to you. Good for you. Do what you can. Still try to be a good person and productive and all that, and love the relationships you do have. But I'm not going to say that you're wrong. If you're truthfully interrogating yourself and coming to that conclusion, then awesome. But yeah, I'd say the vast majority of people probably don't fit into that. So just be very skeptical of that impulse, because I think there's a good chance maybe you're just giving up too soon,
Right.
and maybe you just haven't really tried hard enough.
Right.
Keep at it. Is what I would say.
Yeah, I think this individual, he maybe is one of those 1 percenters who you're talking about, who maybe actually doesn't need one of those spouses and kids situations. But I really don't. I don't believe that he fully knows that until he's at least tried it. You know what I'm saying? And I think, for example,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I know people who have said time and time again, "Oh, I thought I was going to be single forever because like I never even tried dating, and I thought that was just whatever annoying thing." But then like I was randomly at the I was taking like a cooking class randomly, and I met this girl who was showing up there at the same time I was showing up every week, and we hit it off. She was great. We talked a lot. When I got her phone number, we went on some dates, and she's my wife, and we have two kids together, and we cook all the time together because it's a fun little hobby of ours, and that's kind of how we met. And that
Right.
always 9 out of 9 times, those people will tell me, "Hey, when I was 25, 24, I was thinking, hey, I'm just gonna be single forever and just kind of do my own thing, get one and two dialed, and I'm just gonna chill out and kind of go my own way." But then I met her, and she kind of changed my view on things, and she's wholesome and everything. Kind of, she white pilled me. This is where I would come in with the maneuver pilled me, and I think
Yeah.
it's really,
Yeah.
I know it's kind of cliche, but I think there is a woman out there for everybody, and I think this whole concept of you don't need to pursue that. That's fine if you don't, on surface, like, not everything needs to be like centered around getting a woman. I think that's good, but I think there is some level of companionship that you'll never be able to get from anybody except a woman romantically, and I think you will benefit.
Yeah.
You will benefit from that long term, and you'll understand that. And I think a lot of people that are listening to this either know that, or are currently even hearing that. But yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's kind of a. I think Red Pill does get it wrong though. Red Pill says, hey, check out of society, black pill yourself, as many as possible. And I think as many as possible maybe leads you to a poor vetting process. It leads you to show it, like you can show you're exuding the fact that you're somebody who's laissez-faire or casually sleeping around, and that's not necessarily a good thing. And I think always over
Yeah.
time it's going to lead you to a different type of dopamine receptors. Like you're going to be getting dopamine from different aspects and you're going to be judging women on different traits that they're not. It's not as important to, the family making, and
Yeah.
etc. So it's something I would disagree with for the
Yeah.
red pill. So I don't know.
Yep, I agree with that. I think that you're exposing yourself to risks too. Emotional risks, but also physical risks. I mean, STDs or even unwanted pregnancies, stuff like that. I mean, you're really you're taking your life in your own hands for just really the most shallow kind of pleasure, and it doesn't even feel good right afterwards. So I strongly disagree with that, the red pill prescription on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
think that
I think we nailed dating.
I think that ties into, because I think we'll wrap it into the last topic here of the day will be the
Yeah,
workspace, and I think you have
yeah,
a really good like insightful just one liner here is about how the world is basically just a big human resources department, and how does the red pill kind of address this, and where does it get what does it write about as far as that, and talk to me about the human
yeah,
resources department. What is the world coming to as far as work and an HR department and red pill descriptions of what's going on?
yeah. So this ties in a lot to the social aspect. So if you remember back to what I said about women resonating, okay, women resonating, like I said, is not necessarily negative. It becomes negative when it overbalances the masculine um, non-resonance, if you will. So I think that the most important thing in our society, period, is the relationship between men and women. So, and not just individual men and individual women, but really the masculine and the feminine. So spiritually, we bring different things to the table here. Men are problem solvers. We see the truth for what it is. We don't let our emotions guide us. We're logical, ordered, one, two, three type people, right? Women are feelers, so they sense things that you cannot really put words on. They intuit ideas rather than really logically understanding them. They often intuit them and just sort of feel that the thing might be correct, and that's how they go with it. They're not as adept at logically breaking problems down, which makes them it makes them worse uh, leaders and not quite as productive, right? Because they can tend to get wrapped up in silly little small things. Like, I think what happens is that women, when they go into the workplace, try to adopt masculine traits because, again, masculinity is productive. So when you're at work as a man, you're also adopting masculine traits, but they come naturally to you. So it's not really like something you're trying to do. You just understand, oh, I need to listen to what my boss tells me to do. I need to get this thing done at the right time, and I need to do it in a way that's ordered and blah blah blah. I need or higher, make sure my tasks are in the right hierarchy. You naturally do those kinds of things. You may at work you're at a certain mode, so you're at like a different higher level of it. But it all comes naturally to you. Women, it does not come naturally to them. So for the most part, when women are going to work, they're mimicking, right? This again, they resonate. So they're sort of mimicking what they see men do. But here's the problem with that is that they don't understand exactly why we're doing it, and they don't have the feel for why they're doing it. So it ends up becoming a situation where women are forcing themselves into this masculine role that they do not adopt naturally. So it's clumsy, it's awkward. Like I think you may notice a lot of times if you have a female boss, they're often much more difficult to deal with because they think that they need to be like a masculine role is like it's kind of scary. You go to your boss. Your boss is like maybe he has power over you and he can like yell at you and he can discipline you. So a woman thinks that she needs to be scary, right? She didn't understand that like it's scary not because of the guy or anything he's doing. It's just a simple situation of he has power and I don't. So anything he does could potentially scare me, right? Because he has just simply has power over me. Women don't understand that naturally. So where am I going with this? When women are entering the workplace en masse, right? They start to take over positions of power that they do not adopt naturally. And what they do naturally do is let their feminine impulses run wild, right?
Right.
Which again is not a problem. It's just what happens. So men who are encountering this now have a feminized workplace, right? Which means that we're dealing with emotions, which means we're resonating, which means that it's much more important that you say the right thing than that you do the right thing.
Right.
And in fact, doing the right thing can even be seen as negative because you might make someone else look bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're covering up for somebody else's mistakes and then somebody finds out about it, that person looks bad. Well, why did you do that? Why did you make them feel bad like that? Why did you have to call them out on their poor behavior or their poor performance? Why did you have to do that? That makes them feel icky. It's not nice to do. I think that you should have just kept your mouth shut and let the thing get worse. That's actually nicer.
You're
It's
supposed
nicer
to.
to do that. You're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
So men encounter this. You go to work, and that's really what an HR department is. An HR department is there to protect the company from lawsuits. Why would there be a lawsuit? What lawsuit? So a lawsuit for what? Because I made you feel bad at work? You're going to sue me? You're going to say that I made the situation hostile to you because I called you out on your poor performance?
Right.
Like if you ever get fired from a job, hopefully it doesn't happen to you. You're going to see that it's HR that does it. And it's HR that does it because they have to do it in a way that respects your emotions and your feelings, right? So they just, it's not about, oh, you did a really poor thing, you did a really bad thing, and we're letting you go. Like imagine you screwed up so bad that you need to be fired. Somebody's probably pissed at you, right? Like you just screwed something up pretty majorly, but they're not allowed to express any negative feelings towards you, even though they're about to fire you. They have to have HR come in and like baby you and
Right.
like hold you in their arms and
Right.
say, we're just letting you go.
Yeah.
It's okay.
No, definitely, and they
So
don't have the same like the company itself doesn't have the same level of people don't follow their own allegiance to company rules, and it's not a rule that you have to give 2 weeks notice, right? That's a social contract. Everyone at age 16 when they get their first job and they realize, hey, I got a better job. I'm working at Walmart, but hey, I got a job at Target. I got an offer, so I got to give my they ask their parents, hey, I got an offer at Target. What do I do? You can take the job, but you got to let your boss at Walmart know 2 weeks notice, and that's ingrained in everyone's head at a young age, right? Let me ask you guys a question, and I want you to honestly we're gonna ask the question and kind of be silent for a few seconds. Just think about this. Have you ever get 2 weeks notice when you've been laid off, fired, terminated? No. The answer is no. There's never a time where your boss is gonna say, "Hey, in 2 weeks you're gone." I'm sorry, but we're gonna give you 2 weeks notice, and then we're gonna stop. Where you're no longer with us. That's obviously not gonna ever work, right? In the same way, if you think of the logic backwards, why does that not work? I'll tell you why. If you're told that you don't have 2 weeks left on your job, what are you going to do for the next 2 weeks? Are you going to be 100% hyper productive and say, oh, I need to do all my tasks and set up everything perfectly for the next person that's going to replace me? Or are you going to simply check out and go your own way and say, well, I'm going to open up YouTube and just kind of be at work with like shorts and put my feet up on the desk and apply for other jobs? Maybe I'll bring a cigar in. Like that's what you should do, the second thing. And think about that as the other way around. If you give 2 weeks notice to your employer, let's even say it's Walmart in this example, but let's scale it up. Let's say you're working at an office, it's a mid-tier job, and you got a better job, and you're saying, hey, I'm going to give 2 weeks notice. Well, what's going to happen? I mean, are they going to be taking you as seriously for the next 2 weeks, or are they going to say, okay, we got to kind of maybe we got to replace this guy within 2 weeks, right? Are you expected for them to treat you exactly like you were treated for 2 whole weeks. Now, there's certain nuances, and the red pill kind of gets this wrong, I think, because there are nuances. If you're at a company where it's good faith, it's wholesome, it's white pill, you could approach it like that and say, "Hey, I'm given 2 weeks." Or whatever, and they would say, "Hey, I'm really happy for you. It looks like you got a better, opportunity. That's great for you. If you could just finish out your tasks and seamlessly transition you to your stuff off to somebody else, and I'm happy to see you go." Right? That situation is very rare, but it is a white pill thought that does exist. I've seen it. So that is kind of a fairy tale land that we people are thinking they're living in. In reality, if you're working at this office job that I'm explaining, and you say I'm giving my 2 weeks, you're you're not going to be respected. The CEO is going to be really mad at you because he's probably living in one of those post emotional eras where he's like, okay, that's not fair. What did I do wrong? It's like, why are you betraying me? But in the
Yeah.
reality is like it's all a numbers game, right? So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
speak on that if you will, and a little bit on what I just said here with that whole aspect of it.
So, yeah, it's comes down to this. So we said the world is an HR department. The HR mindset is that there are just these rules. What were once unspoken contracts in terms of just like professional conduct have now become codified into like literal written rules that you're supposed to follow, which again is a feminine impulse, right? Men don't need stuff like that. Like when as a man, you inherently understand the value of looking somebody in the eye and shaking their hand, right? You inherently understand the value of like maintaining of maintaining professional productive relationships and how to do it and why you should do it, even if it's like you kind of suppress some political opinion or whatever, I don't know, something like that. You inherently understand why you shouldn't harass your coworkers, right? Because it just makes you look bad and it's going to be worse for you in the long run. That doesn't need to be written down, right? The only time it needs to be written down is again when you have women entering the workplace who do not naturally understand things like that, or don't want to do it. So that's even worse. So a lot of times that can happen. Um, there's a unspoken rule among men, when you're at a workplace that if you ever worked like a blue collar job, you keep things light. You're around a bunch of blue collar dudes. The conversation is crass. There's no politeness. It's just, we're here. This job sucks. We know it sucks. It's hard on our bodies. It's hard. It's hard work, and we keep things light amongst each other. There's a lot of joking, a lot of insulting each other, swearing, whatever the case. No topic is off limits, kind of thing, right? And that's on purpose because we all want to feel like we're fitting in together. This is like a brotherhood. We're all sort of suffering in this same thing, and none of us is going to feel like we're better than the other one because that's like the worst faux pas that you can make is to say that you're like better than them, especially socially, right? Again, this is all something you'll understand naturally if you ever went to a blue collar workplace.
Right.
You're going to see that that's exactly how it goes. Women don't like that. They don't like it. A woman doesn't like those types of crass conversations. She's going to feel uncomfortable. If you make fun of a woman, she's going to take it totally personally. If you're in a blue collar workplace, you got to understand you're going to get roasted from time to time. You're going to do something stupid. If you make a mistake, oh my God, forget about it. You did something dumb. You're going to hear about it for the rest of your life. It's going to become a nickname that you have to wear for the rest of your life because you put the wrong fitting on the pipe or whatever the fuck. A woman, if you did that to a woman, she would sue you. You would be sued. They would say that you created a hostile work environment. You were harassing them. You
Right.
can't do it. So
And
the
those
world,
nicknames exist. Go ahead. The world.
well, no, no. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. What the world becomes an HR department. What was once a masculine space, and again, it's all unwritten. It doesn't need to be written down. Imagine even trying to write that down. What would that look like? Okay, you're allowed to make fun of your friend, but you can't really mean it. You're allowed to you're allowed to give him a stupid nickname for the mistake he made, but it's got to be, kind of funny. And
Yeah.
you can't write these stuff down. It's just something you feel. But a woman can't navigate it without that because
Right.
it's not natural to her. She doesn't understand it. So you end up codifying things that either don't need to be codified or cannot be codified.
Right.
And you cut out natural male behavior and you replace it with rules and regulations that nobody's ever reads or cares about.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And think about this. Think about the perspective of you have 4 or 5 male friends and you're hanging out in you're coming to somebody's, like you're doing a garage sale. You're setting up a garage sale, something simple like that. So you're going to your buddy's house. Hey, I need help setting up the garage sale. You're just doing a task, right? You're doing labor, Now,
Yeah.
have you guys sat down and codified everything, or are you guys just doing the you know it when you see it doctrine, right? And so, elaborating that is,
Yeah.
you got 4 or 5 guys there. One of the guys is sitting down the whole time, and he's like taking breaks all the time, and he's like, oh, everyone else. You're all gonna just say, hey, dude, get off your A and help us out, man. Like, what are we doing? You're not going to
Right.
think, oh, hang on a second. Do I need to go through HR and the proper back channels to make sure I can kind of give feedback to this gentleman who's been sitting down for 2 hours? Or should I just say, get
Yeah.
off your ass and get to work? You know what I'm saying? And it's obviously like you
Yeah.
scale that up into an office situation, and now you've gone to okay somebody who's LLC tier where they actually need to follow this code of conduct, and they actually need to, in my state, tell you certain things like you're not allowed to object to somebody using the bathroom to their identified gender. Now we'll talk about that right now, not later. Right now we'll talk about that. So that is something that I've seen in the People's Republic of California. They have this new kind of in the last 5 years doctrine of HR where it literally says you have to not object to somebody's use of a bathroom that aligns with their preferred identified gender. Otherwise, that's considered
Yeah.
harassment. Now, let's talk about a case that of what I think harassment is, and you tell me in that law who's the harasser and who's the harassee. Your sister is going to her office job. She's driving there. She has to use the bathroom. There's a man in there that has a wig, and she feels like she's harassed by that man being in the bathroom. But her is an objection of that man using that restroom. Now, from the state law, the People's Republic of California's law would say that's her harassing him. And by the way, me even saying her and him in that situation, that would be me harassing both of them because they hadn't tell me
Yeah.
and I haven't signed a contract saying that she is a biological her and he is a more of a her kind of
Yeah.
style, a they them her. So her harassing they them him. It's such a ridiculous clown world scenario where now we've gone so far to protect people's feelings. We're now impeding on a group who needs the help. This is why
Yeah.
I'm different than Red Pill because I do agree that there should be little boundaries in the workplace because men and women are not designed and built to be commingling in the workplace. So we have some regulations to kind of have that work out for them. It's for their protection. Now, do I have a you know it when you see it doctrine in my life? Yeah, that's how I view things. So you know it when you see it, common sense, IQ. Once you get to a
Yeah.
certain point, you do know it when you see it. Now, if we're going out of our way to make rules so that it helps the group that is the oppressed group, quote unquote, commingle with the quote unquote patriarchy, we should not go so radically far that it turns into a self-defeating rule, as I just portrayed in the PRC. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had any situations like that in your life, but think about that from that perspective. Have you seen that people gone so far that they try to protect women in the workplace that they've actually hurt them?
Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect example. I would say also that like codifying rules to protect women doesn't actually help them. Let's say, for example, it's very easy as a man to be accused of like harassment of a female employee, right? Especially if you're a boss, right? Now, one strategy that many leaders use these days is to refuse to be alone in a room with a woman. And if that's a female employee. Like if you want to have a one-on-one with your female employee, and I honestly I would even recommend this if you're running a business, have somebody there with you. Have one of your other leaders just sitting there. They don't have to talk, but just to exist in the room with you. Because if you don't, you open yourself up to the potential lawsuit. She could say anything, and it's just your word versus hers, right? And you risk having everything taken from you because one disgruntled woman wants to file a frivolous lie lawsuit and just take it from you. Could happen. So think about what that does to women. Now let's say you're women, I would never do that. I'm an honest person. I'm not looking to just get rich off a lawsuit. Great. Yeah, I'm sure. I think the vast majority of women are like that, of course. But you are disadvantaged because it's possible for that to happen, right? The fact that the harassment is so easy to claim with such a stupid low margin of proof, and our justice system will give deference to women who say that they're being harassed, makes your life worse. Your boss can't trust you. You understand that through no fault of your own. You did nothing wrong, but your boss, it's actually in his best interest not to trust you, and to have a third party in the room so that no matter what, he can't be accused of harassment, right? So that's an example right there. Just the society has gone so far to try to protect women from quote unquote harassment that it's now in male leader's best interest to just completely erase the possibility, and and therefore you can't really have a useful one-on-one conversation without somebody else present. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right, and
That's
I
one
think the way
example.
this ties into the whole topic is that a lot of HR managers are women, and a lot of women are more susceptible to kind of that propaganda of, hey, if you're not on our tribe, if you're not inclusive of all these certain races and certain genders and everything, then you're not really a good person. And I don't think you need to be thinking about race, gender, or anything like that, sex or anything like that, or religion or anything to be an engineer. You don't need to think about that at all, actually. So if somebody is so hyper insecure about their own downfall of, oh, maybe I am racist or maybe I am sexist, and they're put into an HR position, they're going to project that insecurity onto all of the people they potentially are going to hire. So they're going to be doing a litmus check and say, hey, maybe we should hire more, you know, people of color, more, more blacks, more Asians. Well, not Asians, but more blacks, more Hispanics. Maybe we should hire more women, more,
Yeah.
they them's, because we want to be inclusive, etc. And also they'll extend that to when they look at resumes, they maybe look for certain things that are kind of more woke minded, and that's how you end up with companies that have a very very woke culture because the gatekeepers of the company happen to be not happen to be, but are so on that woke side of things, and
Yeah.
that's turned a lot of these companies into kind of into woke companies. And you think of like you think of Blizzard for example. I mean, 20 years ago, there was no what the culture war was not like it is today. So their hiring process was, hey, let me look at this guy's resume. Looks pretty good. Let's get him in the door. Okay, so this white male
Yep.
just came in, whatever. Like they won't even have said white male. But now, 20 years later, you get interview at Blizzard. They're looking on their website. They have said, hey, we want diversity. We want people that are coming from different backgrounds. If you're looking for diversity of immutable characteristics, you're already in the wrong situation. Like that's not going to be something that helps the engineering aspect of it all. You don't need somebody to be from a diverse,
Right.
immutable characteristic place to become a good engineer. Now, I'm not saying that people from different immutable characteristics can't be engineers. What I'm saying is don't go out of your way to look for that. Look for
Right.
engineers. Look for people who are good at engineering. But what we've turned into is
Right.
this, hey, I want to include others and I want to think about helping everybody. And I think we need to have some, et cetera, et cetera. And you get a big company that has become technically bloated with just people that are not necessarily fit for the job, right? I mean, you have certain things that turn into bad products because of that. And so I think it's get all of that wokeism out of corporations, get it way far away from it. But the reason it's there, in my
Yeah.
opinion, and it ties perfectly into this, is that its HR department kind of style has been really pushing for that for the last 5 years. And
Yeah.
tying it back
Yeah.
into the maneuver life aspect of it is instead of red pill is MGTOW and say, hey, don't even apply for a company like that. Don't do all that. Maneuver life
Yeah.
is more, hey, just white pill it out and think if I'm at a company and I have an opinion that goes against the stray, I'll keep it to myself, but I'll still stick to my principles. I'll bring it into perspective and say, hey, no, I don't think it's necessarily about immutable characteristics. I think, hey, I can actually just kind of do this job, and maybe I can do this job a certain way. And I'm not afraid of offending, my coworker Jim because he did the wrong thing here. I'm just going to fix it and I'll lift him up. I was like, hey, good attempt here,
Yeah.
but let's figure it out together. And I'm going to say, hey, this is a better way, and just go forward with a
Yeah.
white pill mindset, a maneuver mindset, and you can maneuver kind of from the bottom up to your company. Even I think that's kind of a different perspective than the red pill on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say this is a tough one for me. I think I'm much. This is probably the one area where I'm much closer to agreement with like the red pill prescription here, because it is a difficult thing. I mean, this is one area where I don't really think that you can even really make much of a dent, even by being a good example, because it's simply so ingrained. I mean, if you've ever worked in a corporate environment, it's just oozing with this like woke HR mindset. It's everywhere. Every single interaction you have is like just dripping with it. So I think it is something that needs to be undone. It's something that needs to kind of just be broken. Now, I guess the nuance for me would be, remember the order of operations. Remember that your number one thing is to have loyalty to God, then your family, and in order to do that, you need to have loyalty to yourself, right? So do what's best for you in this situation. I contrast that with dating. I think you should not necessarily just focus on what's best for you only and your hedonistic pleasures, etc. When it comes to work, when it comes to your livelihood, keeping food on the table, keeping the roof over the head, you gotta you gotta maneuver this situation. You gotta kind of manage it. You
Right.
gotta think, I'm going to keep my mouth shut about certain things. I'm going to refuse to be alone with women. I'm going to refuse to give any sort of opening to be even accused of harassment or racism or anything like that. I'm going to play the HR game as long as I have to. Now you can subtly push back here and there if you find a way to do it. Go ahead. I can't think of any examples. I'm not going to give you any, but play the game as you see fit. Make the pushes that you think you can make safely. But I think number one, take care of yourself. Don't jeopardize your livelihood over this. Hey, if you're willing to, awesome. I'm not going to say don't. If you're brave and you think you can really make a change, and do it, then awesome. Just give it a shot. But I don't really necessarily advocate for it, and I don't blame anybody who wants to just sort of play it safe on this
Right.
on this particular instance. Now, the one thing I will say is I think the winds have shifted, so we've opened the conversation that way. So the vibe is definitely going back in our favor right now. So I don't think you're going to have to hold out for too much longer, which is another key reason I'm saying don't rock the boat too much because you
Right.
really don't need to. Like it's kind of becoming undone by itself. So
No, definitely, and I agree to that. Definitely play the game, but I think, like you were saying, there's a shift right now that's occurring, and there's
yeah,
definitely even today,
yeah,
like there's a lot of jobs out there that you can get, and a lot of people are, and we're gonna talk about this next week, but a lot of people are already common sense minded, so under the hood they're already thinking what you're thinking is, hey, should that guy be in the women's bathroom? That's kind of weird, and they just won't say it out loud. But then
yeah,
the power of one person saying it makes another person take, oh, hey, I'm resonating with the truth. And actually, resonating in this case is good. I'm resonating with, hey, you're also uncomfortable that there's a giant 6'2" man with hairy legs in my woman's bathroom. Like my sister's in there, or
yeah,
my whatever. And
yeah,
so once the first person says it, that's the first way to tear down something that's tear down is a red pill term, but that's the first way to get it kind of change the system. And I think
yeah,
inside the company, I think you're going to find that if you're honest about a lot of things, it's going to be easier for you long term. Now, there are some little tactics that go into that, and again, in maybe 3 weeks from now, we'll discuss kind of dynamics of work and stuff. But there's a lot of stuff going forward that we can get really into, and I think the white pill, the hope of the culture shifting, people understanding that that stuff's not you've gone too far with it, and let's focus on the work. Let's focus on, hey, let's sell the phones. Let's install the internet correctly. Let's make the software correctly. Let's build the roads correctly. Like that stuff's more important than, hey, should I be put my pronouns in my email? No, I mean I don't.
right.
So it's kind of to put a whole kind of tie it all together. I mean, do you have any like concluding thoughts here? Because I mean we've hit everything, I think, really honestly on the list. So
Yeah, I think hopefully we've done a good job contrasting, between our prescription on what to do about the reality of the situation. And I think at every stage we very strongly agree with the descriptions. I don't think we really disagree with any of the descriptions according to the red pill. It's simply a matter of what to do with the information. So I'd say that the key difference is that we are hopeful and we're optimistic and we're sort of asking everybody, but especially ourselves, to like challenge ourselves to try to make the world better
right.
in whatever little way we can, right? So, and the red pill does not do that. Does not. It's not going to go that far. So, hopefully, you're convinced by us, and if so, we'd love to hear from you. Leave comments, subscribe.
Hmm.
Tell us what you think about this. It's a long episode. I think we'll probably skip the questions.
Oh
What do
yeah,
you
oh
think?
yeah. We'll wrap it up here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So,
we'll catch you guys next week,
yeah.
and we will have a fun topic there, and you'll see it. But for now, I
Yeah.
think for me personally, I think kind of contrasting the whole thing is just the one, two, three of it, right? The fitness, the career, the woman. I think that'll all be linear. So that's kind of where I'm saying it. And Red Pill agrees with a lot of that. But as Dean was saying, don't give up. Always check in my mind. So it's kind of like a little
Yeah.
bit of a
Yeah.
contrast, and try to avoid sexual degeneracy if you can. I think it's better for you in the long term. If you're only going to pick up one thing, pick that up. Pick the degeneracy aspect and get rid of
Yeah.
that. So that's kind of where I'm going with it.
I agree. Yeah. I think I agree with you completely. I think we're good there.
Alrighty. Well, all right, guys. Check us out next week. Thanks for watching the video, and like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah,
Peace
thanks for
out.
watching.